welcome to Splice and Splatter, the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror
meets modern gore.
I'm Siena.
And I'm Al.
Look at that. We were so organized.
So prepared.
I know.
I knew you were going to do the name, so I was ready.
Yep.
Hi.
Hi. I am feeling so rejuvenated by this. I know I told Al yesterday I was worried that I might not be feeling well enough to do the episode today because I've got a little tickle in my throat that I couldn't tell if it was allergies or something else. And honestly, I feel like watching Jawbreaker last night gave me life.
I'm so glad. Yeah, these movies truly are. These are so perfect. I had so much. For the first time ever, I went into them chomping at the bit to watch them.
Same.
Could not wait. Did not wait.
It has been a long time. I mean, I love all the films we watch, but especially when you're watching things to research them. And we always, I don't know about you, but I always do the watch after I've done my notes. So I go in a very kind of research oriented mindset. And these I just it was so much easier than with most of our films to just relax and be swept away.
Yeah, no, the same with this one. I actually got my notes done. I've been having to do them in two parts where I start them and then I organize them and research them. Like you said, we kind of start with the skeleton and then go in and fill things out. But I powered through, got them finished, and then got to watch. And then last night I got to watch Carrie. It was the first thing I did.
Love.
Got home and I was just I fucking love these movies so much.
Really satisfying. And as you said, Jawbreaker was such a perfect choice to pair with this.
Oh yeah, just wait.
Yeah,
I'm glad I'm going first so I can get to
I think it's kind of perfect, especially because it's Jawbreaker sets us up very well for Carrie.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. We have things to pimp, though. Do you want to pimp things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of Carrie, do you want to run away with our anti-prom at the Jean Cocteau?
We are doing an anti-prom at the Jean Cocteau, which is why we decided on this pairing. So we're screening Carrie. It's going to be 17 and up, which, if you've seen Carrie, you can understand why.
Yeah. Bush and boobs immediately.
Yeah. Just right out the bat.
Yeah.
Right out the bat? What is that? Right out the gate.
Sports.
Jesus Christ.
Little Siena trying to be straight for 2 seconds.
Oh my God.
Catering to our straight audience.
I've lost myself.
You've lost your edge.
Truly. The sports took it away.
Straighter. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, I got straighter, got more edge. So we're doing anti-prom. We're gonna have some kind of punch going on. We're gonna have, what are all the things we're doing for anti-prom?
So we're doing a photo op, so it would be an opportunity. We're gonna decorate the hell out of the place.
Yeah.
We'll have a photo op. We're gonna do goodie bags for everyone. We're hosts, but not hosts. We're sponsors of the event. So we'll have goodie bags with things in them. All this is included in your ticket. There will also be, I really wanted to have prom royalty. So I'm thinking as if you buy a ticket, you're entered in a raffle to be prom royalty. And so I want to do a giveaway there. I really want to have blood. Have to talk about that if we can have a blood station. And then there's also going to be an after party as well. And then obviously please cosplay.
Yes.
Tickets are on sale. It's $20 and you get all of that. Which is wild. So JeanCocteauCinema.com for that. We're also doing for Mother's Day, if you celebrate or if you don't, we're doing Serial Mom and Aliens at the theater. So those tickets are also on sale. And then I'm gonna do one last pimp. We sell Carrie at Beasley Books and we do have a discount code. So Splice 10, you could get 10% off.
And can I just shout out that it is the edition of Carrie with an introduction by Margaret Atwood, which I'm
I forgot that.
Desperate to read, especially if you're one of the folks who's watching the final season of Handmaid's Tale right now. You can get a little Carrie Handmaid's Tale crossover action going on there.
About that. So yeah. Anyways, that's all our things. Yay fun. I'm very excited for all of them.
Yeah. Without further ado, do you have a tid?
I do.
Amazing.
Do you?
I do.
I want you to.
Do you want me to do my tid first?
Because mine might I don't know.
Does yours kind of lead right into your notes?
Kind of.
Essentially? Okay, great. Well, it's actually kind of perfect because my tid is about Carrie the book.
Oh.
Since we were just talking about it. And I think it's kind of a good setup to this conversation because obviously you don't get Jawbreaker without Carrie. But
for sure.
But and I don't know if you know this story. I think it's a pretty famous Stephen King story, but you don't get Carrie without the tale of Tabitha and the Trash Can. Have you heard about this?
No.
Yeah, so this was Stephen King's first published novel. But he'd been writing for men's magazines at the time.
Sure.
And he'd gotten a critique from somebody, a reader who'd written in to criticize him for being too macho and said that he couldn't write about women. And Stephen King sees this and is like, well, I'll show you that I can write about women.
No.
Starts writing Carrie and immediately is like, something's going on with this. This is going to be way longer than any magazine is going to publish.
Yeah.
His first draft, I think, clocks in at 98 pages. So it's like a novella, you know,
Sure.
it's not a full novel length, but it's way too long for the kind of work he's been doing.
For sure.
And he's like, okay, fuck this. Because I brought in a quote from him from his book on writing. Quote,
Amazing.
I couldn't see wasting 2 weeks, maybe even a month, creating a novella that I didn't like and wouldn't be able to sell, so I threw it away. After all, who wants to read a book about a poor girl with menstrual problems? Amazing.
All of us, Steven.
All of us.
Stefan.
That's what your career is made of.
Oh my God.
A career built on periods.
Oh my God.
But his wife, Tabby, rescued it from the trash can while he was at work, from the laundry room trash can, and like puts a sticky note on it and tells him that he has to keep writing it. And that is the only reason that we get the Stephen King we have today, because this book made his career.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
also, once again, like the wife saving the day here.
Yep. Well, and I'm sure
Can you imagine if we didn't. Oh, think of how much that happens, though.
Well, and of course, Tabitha is also a writer, so my sense from the story, I've seen different versions of it told over the years, is that she then kind of gave a lot of input on it, on the next versions as it evolved, which is probably why it is so real to the experience of being a teenage femme, because Tabby contributed so much to it.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I had no idea.
Tabitha in the trash can.
I didn't realize, too, that was his, like, first...
That's his very first
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Your first thing out the gate. And
oh, we're going to talk about it.
Oh my God.
Anyways, that's my tid.
Wild.
Give me yours.
Oh boy, buckle up. Well, we're going to lead in with a very light one.
Great.
And then we'll go into it. So,
oh God,
we have our writer-director, Darren Stein, who we'll talk about. I love him.
So curious.
He's adorable. I thought this was kind of fun. He intentionally cast older actors for the teenagers as an homage to Grease and Carrie, who both had a little bit older actors. But that is not where the Carrie connection ends. When you said, like, we wouldn't have Jawbreaker without Carrie, we would not have Jawbreaker without Carrie. Why did I get, like, nervous all of a sudden? Like butterflies. I'm like, oh my God, who am I saying this for? You guys, stop listening.
We're shy.
Stop looking. But 4 actors in Jawbreaker have all starred in various versions of Carrie. PJ Souls, I think that's how you say it.
Yes. Yeah. Norma.
And William Catt were in the original movie, so they were like the popular teams.
Who is PJ Souls?
They're like the popular. Oh, I'll let you know. They were the parents of.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's what I have. So many PJ Souls stories for you. Really? Like, she is a very important part of the making of Carrie, and we have some good behind the scenes stories and quotes from her. So, like, put a pin in PJ.
Okay, put a pin in PJ. good drop. We also have Charlotte Anya, who was in the 1999 Carrie 2: The Rage. I have not seen any other Carrie films, so I'm just going to put that out there.
Neither have I. I will list them at the end of mine.
Yeah. I've not seen a single one. Don't know if I will. But we also have Fern, who's played by Judy Greer. She was inspired directly by Sissy Spacek's role in Carrie, and then went on to play, I think, Mrs. Desjardins. Is that his name?
Desjardins, I think.
Yeah, is that how you say it? In the 2013.
Oh, interesting.
And then we'll kind of get into a little bit more, but there is like... This movie was heavily influenced by Carrie.
I mean,
if you watch these back to back,
obviously,
yeah. But so that's my little tid. Oh, and then they also said they're gonna pick up some pig's blood when they're driving to the prom scene.
Yeah,
that's so, like
that. Yeah. Well, and it's even shot like the scene with John Travolta and Nancy Allen. Yeah. It's such an homage.
Yeah. So they do not hide that if you're seeing the connections. Yeah. Before we get into it, too, we've both seen both of these movies, right?
This was my first time with Jawbreaker.
Oh, it was your first time with Jawbreaker?
It was not my first time with Carrie, but it was my first time with Jawbreaker, which, like, it was one that I'd saved for myself because I knew that I was gonna love it.
And did you love it?
I loved it,
It's so
obviously. But I was shocked looking it up just to find where to watch it last night. Like I just typed into Google like
Ooh.
where to watch Jawbreaker.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that spoiled for me the Rotten Tomatoes score
Oh
of
my God, yeah.
Jawbreaker.
Oh my God, I just realized I didn't put it, but it was
It's like
low.
a 17.
It's 15%.
Yeah, it's
Isn't that wild?
and after watching it, I'm like,
who dare?
yeah.
Who dare?
Heathers had already come out at this point. Like, what were you not getting?
I have a chunk towards the end of
About
why
Heathers?
it got.
Oh,
not about
fantastic.
Heathers, about why this got so much hate. At
Fantastic, because
yeah.
it
But again,
really
put a
does
pin in
not
Heathers.
deserve it. Yeah, great, fantastic.
Yeah, isn't that shitty? I don't know what it says. I might have Trav pull up IMDb. But we do talk about
fantastic.
The unfortunate release of this film, but you loved it.
I loved it. It was very satisfying.
I'm gonna move my cord.
I mean, I also just we've talked before about I can't remember if it's been on the air or not, but obviously both huge Rose McGowan stans.
Oh, we've talked about her.
Great,
we've
fantastic.
Talked about Doom Generation
That's
here specifically.
which also this character and Amy Blue feel very connected.
Yeah.
But also Judy Greer was like one of my queer awakenings.
Oh, funny.
So, I fucking love that woman.
She's incredible.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but Judy Greer in Arrested Development was like one of my first moments of like, do I like women?
Oh my God, funny. I have to rewatch.
I don't know,
remember
guys.
her in that. Oh no. Those who
Say
know,
goodbye
know.
to these, Michael.
That makes sense, actually. The attitude.
Yeah. Listen, I don't have a good explanation either. But anyway, I fucking love Judy Greer.
Yeah.
Was really excited to get to see her play like the hot girl for once. Because like I feel like she is one of those comedic actresses who's been forced to play a lot of like quote unquote ugly parts, even though she's not.
Yeah. Not
and
at
it
all.
was nice to see her
get
to be seen as hot by people other than me.
For sure. Yeah. This movie is just like full of just
such
hotness.
women.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
The outfits, which we'll talk about more during
oh
this
my
too,
god, so Barbie coded.
Yeah, so good. So I'm description of this, I'm just gonna say, if you haven't seen Jawbreaker, I feel like a lot of people, this still is flying under the radar a little bit of a film. I feel like it's definitely still in like the cult status, but even smaller than that a little bit. I feel like it doesn't get all the attention. People are like, oh yeah, I know that, I heard it's good, and then like never get to it.
It's like oft maligned, I feel like.
Yeah. So description: 3 of the most popular girls at Reagan High accidentally kill a prom queen with a jawbreaker when kidnapping goes horribly wrong. As it does.
I also love that all of that entire plot description plays out in the cold open to the movie.
Yeah.
Like you get all that before
you
the
need
credits.
to know.
Yeah. It's so good.
Both these movies really something in similarity to, like, they both just immediately interject
Toss
you in
you
the middle.
Yep.
You're just in it. You don't have to wait for a lead up. You are at the
there.
catalyst of what is to come. So taglines for this movie are fucking incredible.
Oh, I'm so
they
excited.
did no wrong. We have some of the sweetest candies are sour as death inside.
The Pam Grier line.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which also, I had no idea Pam Grier was in this movie. Another queer awakening for me.
Oh my god, yeah. The L word. That's like what I know her from. We have Death Totally Bites.
I love that.
I know. And then the last one, you're gonna love this one. Suck It and See.
Yes!
Which I only hear Rose McGowan saying, like, all of these.
That's
the dialogue
incredible.
in this is just like everything I wanted to be. Again, like you said, with Rose McGowan as Amy Blue, like
very similar.
Yes. So rating of this film, it ended up getting an R.
I'm not surprised.
But the MPA actually wanted to give it an NC-17 rating because of the sex scene we have with the man that we like to not talk about, who looks like he looks like Nicolas Cage with a mustache.
Oh my god, he really does.
I can't unsee it. So they thought it was like so grotesque. They basically took out hip thrusts, like they have in one of your films. They just took out a couple thrusts to give it the rating it needed. But they were just like really fucking pissed about it. They're like, really, that's all it takes for
I think
us,
it was
so.
Clive Barker who was talking about, like, I'm allowed 2
was.
hip thrusts.
It
not
was.
3.
It was. So yeah, there were definitely more than 3.
Fantastic.
So like by the time we got to the late 90s, we were good. But yeah, so that was kind of the discrepancy there. What did they say? One of the cuts, we have the director, he says, quote, "One of the cuts we had to make to get an R rating was to cut out the number of thrusts. It was shot in slow motion. It was really sleazy. I guess it was too sleazy for the MPAA."
But that's the goal.
Yeah.
This is a sleazy film.
Yeah. So, anyways, they got their R. They're good. And we're going to continue to talk about our writer-director, Darren Stein, who was only 28 years old when he directed this. I don't know when he started writing it.
Yeah.
But 28 years old. I brought in a picture of him because he's such a cutie patootie.
Is this man gay?
Oh, fuck yes, he
okay,
is.
Thank
this
God.
Is another queer director.
I was like, there is no way a straight
look
man
at this little cutie with the girlies. So they were all like, I'm going to show the camera.
He's one of the girls.
He's one of the girls. And they loved him too. So a lot of where I got my notes from was actually a Vice retrospective in 2016.
Cool.
So I have a lot of quotes from them. But they just like loved him. Rose McGowan like will fucking die on a hill saying he's like one of the best directors. She like loved him and they loved working with him. So
I love that. Well, and Rose McGowan is somebody who speaks her mind. So if she didn't him, she would let you know.
The Vice article, please everyone go read it. I have the name of it in here as we get further, but she's so unapologetically herself and I love her for it. So her quotes are great. I don't have all of the sassy ones just because they weren't super applicable, but please go read it. So he was a California-born director and writer. Obviously, he's known for Jawbreaker, but he also did 2013's GBF, which is Gay Best Friend, and then 1997's Sparkler, which actually starred Freddie Prinze Jr. and the mom from Twin Peaks. I cannot say her last name, so I'm not gonna attempt to try. Yeah, so never heard of it. Really want to watch it now. So obviously starring Rose McGowan as Courtney. I love her beyond words. So again, I feel like we don't need to like walk through her credits, but like Scream we know her from, which came out the same year, Planet Terror, Grindhouse, and then Doom Generation. She was also in Charmed, but like never watched that. That's not where I know her from.
Yeah, same.
I always forget she's in that show.
She's Amy Blue to me. That's it.
Yeah. So one of the reasons she was actually sent this script was from Doom Generation.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Darren had watched it, loved her in that so much, and I didn't realize.
Of course he's gay.
Yeah. This was her second film. I didn't realize Doom Generation was her first film.
Oh my God, that makes me love it even more.
Yeah, and like wild to come out the gate with these two movies, like really setting her career up, I think. But saw that, loved it, sent her the script, and then to which she said, quote, she remembers sitting in my backyard and reading the script on my porch with my two Boston Terriers, Fester and Bug. Love. I call Mabel Bug. And I would run the lines with my dog Fester. I would pretend he was answering as one of the other characters, and then I would read Courtney Shane, and I was like, oh, okay, it's on. I got this. So she immediately loved the script. I don't know what age she was at the time too, but like I think like young 20s at this point.
I'll say Sissy Spacek was 26 when shooting Carrie.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking she was around the similar age. And so, like I said, this was her second film. Director Darren said, quote, I remember seeing her for the first time in the Doom Generation at a special screening in LA, and I was just like, who? Yeah. I mean, Rose was silver. Yeah. Rose was like a silver screen star. She was unlike anything I'd ever seen in modern day context, which is so true. Everyone, I don't think we're going to stop bullying you to all watch Doom Generation.
It's essential.
It is. So, Rose McGowan, again, where I said, Rose McGowan said she based her character of Courtney on Jean Tierney.
Oh my God. Yes. Jean Tierney.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, I couldn't remember how to say her name, but I know who she is.
You got it. Yeah.
In 1945's Leave Her to Heaven.
Amazing. Of course.
This makes sense.
Yeah.
You're sassy. So I feel like, she based on this character, and she described the character of Courtney, and then I think the character in that film as a young budding sociopath.
Amazing.
Which I love. And she kind of talked about this in an interview too, saying, quote, when the new husband in the movie is like, darling, why did you push Timmy off a cliff? Timmy was a kid in a wheelchair, for those that don't know, in the scene. She's like, darling, we needed more time together. It completely was like, yeah, what's the big deal? And so she took that kind of attitude of like, fuck it and blasé, and kind of brought this to the character. And I just think that's part of me is just like, that's who she is as well. So I'm thinking she just pushes it and channels it, but I'm like, honey, that is
there's
who
a
you
little
are.
bit of that in Rose. Yeah.
There's Also, a famous line in Jawbreaker that her character says as well, where Courtney kind of threatens Fern in the bathroom and she says, I made you and I can break you just as easily. We have a lot of references. So not only that film as a reference, but that line is an homage to Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh
and
my
it's the
God,
same.
I knew it from somewhere.
Yeah. And so it's the same line Dr. Frankenfurter says when he threatens his creation. So she kind of has that. And then some other lines that she says too is life's a bitch, then you die, which is like, I feel like a line that everyone kind of takes from this film. She actually really didn't want to say that line. She thought it was really cliche, really lame.
That's
Again,
the
very much like her character.
Yeah.
And so director Darren actually insisted on her saying this line. And so like in her sassy nature, she kind of said it blasé. She's like, I don't want to fucking do it.
Yeah.
They only did that one take. And so they had to keep it in, but the audiences actually loved the delivery of that line.
Perfect.
And it's so funny because it almost flies under the radar when you hear it. But again, it became like one of the lines from the film. So there's a lot of kind of like callbacks to
fascinating.
that. Yeah. We have Judy Greer, your love, as Fern, aka Violet.
Yes.
Who yeah, she's so good in this in both roles.
Incredible. Yes.
The wig is atrocious at the beginning.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
But it really,
the transformation is transforming.
Yeah.
She really doesn't look like the same person.
No.
So I kind of, again, I didn't really list her credits. I kind of feel like she's that character actor that kind of like everyone knows her from something
Everyone's
super
seen
different.
Judy Greer in something.
Yeah. I think she's such I don't think she gets enough love, and I hope that she has a role that kind of, she should be on White Lotus. That's
Somebody
like how everyone
make that
gets ascend to stardom. Just put them on White Lotus.
She would be perfect for it.
Oh my God, she'd be so good. She would eat that role.
Yeah.
So, in a fun little tid about her, her alter ego Violet was actually inspired from a real person named Violet.
Oh my God.
Who was an actor in a few things. Most notably, they were Little Miss Vengeance in the 1999 film Mystery Men, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
No, I'm not.
But also was director Darren's real life friend. And so I love that they took this real person, and Violet actually appears in the film as like makeup monger number 2.
Oh my God,
but I love that this person was like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's totally me. And that's fine. And then also appears in the film. We have Pam Grier as Detective Vera Cruz, who is everything. She's so funny in this. I don't know why. She just comes in with such a force. She almost feels like she's not in the same film as everyone else.
Totally. Which is, I feel like kind of
it's
Pam
kind of
Grier's thing. Is like she has a presence that just, no matter how subtle she's being, will eclipse anybody else in a scene with her. And I fucking adore it.
Yeah. I would say she's like, and I mean this in the best way, she's like a black hole. Yes. It's just like everything kind of like gravitates.
Yeah, everything gets absorbed into Pam Grier. And Pam Grier just like shines so brightly.
She's like, thanks.
Yeah.
So I know her from The L Word. Amazing. That's where I was introduced.
I know her from The L Word and also from Foxy Brown.
I was gonna say, so we have Jackie Brown and Foxy Brown are her two like really big film roles that like most people probably know her from.
Coffee too is another really good one.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that.
Love. I think you'd really enjoy Coffee.
Yeah. So she's like such an icon. I don't even think running through things like that does us any credit here.
Also, just like one of the most incredible life stories. Like, listen to Pam Grier interviews.
Yeah.
It's
I want to say I went down a rabbit hole of like going through all the cast of L Word as you do, as I was figuring out if I was like truly gay. Spoiler alert, I was.
You were.
And so I remember, but it's like since, but I remember her story being kind of wild. So something kind of funny. I don't know if you noted her hair in this in any sort of way. It's in her contract, or it was in her contract at the time, I should say, of this film, that she was in charge of doing her own hair.
Love that.
And so she did her own hair. But and it was a compilation of like 3 to 4 wigs, which I'm like, oh dear. It looks like 3 to 4 wigs.
It does.
I don't know if it was the best hairstyle, but she was happy with it.
That's what's important.
Yeah. Mine's like my eyebrows. No one can do my eyebrows, so you know what I mean? I can't have anyone. And then kind of like a funny median story. So Judy Greer, when she first was on set, she was like, I very excited to work with. Pam Grier went up to her and was like, hey, we have the same last name. And Pam like looked her up and down and basically was like, yeah, but I don't think we're related. Which like is such a, in my mind, she like flicked the wig and then she walked away.
I love her so much.
Diva in the best way possible.
Oh, yeah. Now kiss.
Yeah, now kiss. We have Rebecca Gayheart, love,
great,
as Julie. You might know her from 1998's Urban Legend. She was also in 2019's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I've still not seen. And she was
started it and never
didn't like it. That's what I heard. Sleepy. I heard Sleepy Times.
I mean, I'm also just, again, we know my feelings on Tarantino. It's late Tarantino especially.
Yeah. She was also in director Darren's other film, GBF, in 2013, so she went on to work with him again, which I love. But she hasn't been in, like, a ton of other things. She slayed at this role, though. We have Julie Benz as Marcy, a.k.a. Foxy. I don't know if they ever call her actual name. She just wears her little Foxy necklace the whole time.
Incredible.
I forgot. If anyone's watched Dexter, I forgot she's fucking Rita on Dexter.
Oh, whoa.
Isn't that wild?
Put that together.
Wildly different characters.
Yeah.
I see it, but I also don't see it because they're just so different.
Yeah.
And she was such a baby in this compared to...
True.
I don't know.
She felt like such a baby.
Yeah. And then she feels like so mature and so different. So love her. That kind of blew my mind watching this. Because it's been a few years since I've seen this film, so
or since I've seen Dexter. I thought you were gonna say, but
oh yeah, Dexter too. So the nickname Foxy, they actually think it's an homage to Pam Grier's character,
Foxy
which
Brown.
Julie Benz said she actually had to audition for this role a couple of times. She said she read for casting first, and then she read for an assistant, and then she did casting director, and then Darren, and then she finally read for producers. So it took her a really long time to get this role. And she said to getting cast, quote, I was intimidated. Rose McGowan and Rebecca Gayheart, they were stars, which love. I was kind of a nobody at that point, so I was pretty intimidated. I thought they were really cool. Rebecca is like the sweetest person on the planet and so lovely and so kind. And I was like, I love that she's just fangirling over these girls. And really generous towards me. And Rose is a forest. I was definitely intimidated by her and realized that fit the character, that fit Marcy's and Courtney's relationship, so I could just use that and work with that.
That's so funny.
I think she was just
terrified of
Rose she's like,
yeah, great.
So if you watch her performance, just know that was probably
real.
Her.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which is really cute. Julia also had to cut, she has that like little cunty bob in this, so she had to cut her hair for this role. But she was supposed to get married, she got married, or like had her wedding date set for like the same month this was supposed to get released. So when they asked her to cut her hair, she like had a full fucking meltdown about it. But Rose McGowan like convinced her to do it. And as you could hear, like she was like, anything you say, Rose.
That's so funny.
So she cut her hair. She remembers like crying. So like one of the first scenes that they shot was the initial car scene, where they're all freaking out with their fucking dead friend in the back, in the trunk. And so they're doing that scene, and she said in order to like, she had to like cry and kind of be a little bit like upset in that. And so she said she would just touch her hair, and she would cry.
That is so on brand for this movie.
Yeah. Just like, no. I could imagine like you're really excited, you're working with these actors that you admire, and then they're telling you like you have to cut your hair.
Yeah.
And so she was just like,
that's so funny.
She was probably feeling a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I feel bad.
Poor thing.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you noticed this too, because I kind of had a who's that moment? Her dad is Kaneki from Grease.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a cast this film has.
They really got
the most.
I don't have a lot of information, unfortunately, about like the production, how it got funded, and all of and about all that. Is my mic drooping? No. Okay.
Great.
Hi. So we also have, you barely see her, but we also have Tatiana Ali as Brenda. She's like the friend with the little bangs. Yeah. She was fucking Ashley in Fresh Prince.
Oh my God.
And
amazing.
I like kind of wish she had more of a speaking role.
Yeah.
She kind of just pops around, but I was like, what a fucking icon to be in there.
Oh, I wish we'd gotten more of her.
Yeah, I wish, I don't know. I get it. Yeah. That would have been unnecessary, but she pops up in the back. And she's most recently in Abbott Elementary, which I've still not watched.
It is so good.
I know, I really want to watch it.
highly recommend.
Yeah, it's on the list. We also have a director cameo from Darren himself. You can spot him in the like feature yearbook photos that flash across the screen, and then we also get his boyfriend at the time, Tommy McKay, and he also plays like he has a little cameo where he's like the officer that knocks at the door. But yeah, so he put his little boo in it too.
I
so yeah,
love that.
you get a double cameo. So getting to script. So I have a decent amount on the script at least. Darren had originally intended to make a like true horror film when he set out to write a script. But then he said he started writing the scripts of Jawbreaker, which I don't know if it had a title at the time, and it kind of like morphed itself into something. So I think he had one intent and it kind of just had a life of its own. And he actually based the script on real life, which I love. He recalled like a group of girls he went to high school with who would kidnap each other for their birthdays. And he kind of had this thought like, what if that went horribly wrong?
Yeah.
Which,
could easily happen. Yeah.
And then kind of eventually realized this was more of like a dark comedy horror film. So I kind of love that thought sparked. Did you have anyone that did that?
I don't know of anybody kidnapping, but I did have an immediate gut reaction of like sticking the Jawbreaker down the throat, thinking it's just like a funny thing to do. Feels like exactly the kind of dumb shit that like you wouldn't realize is dumb in high school. Like I could so believe that being something that you do thinking it's going to be fine.
Yeah. It also reminds me of when we talked about I Know What You Did Last Summer. That was like the same premise of like, what if you got into an accident and you accidentally killed somebody, right? Like driving, which is like the biggest fear. But things like that do happen. Every time I've broken a bone, it's been like the stupidest fucking thing.
Right.
So I do feel like, God, we live in a really scary time.
It's
the whole premise of Final Destination.
Yeah. Humans are dumb.
But yeah, so I wonder if those girls watched that and was like, is this about us? Yeah. Like I said, too, he obviously took inspiration from other films, so including Heathers and Carrie, like I talked about, and then a mix of John Hughes films.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I feel like if you make a film like this, you have to be such a fan of John Hughes.
It's so steeped in high school movie history.
Yeah. And just like the humor of it too. So to the concept, Darren said, quote, "The Jawbreaker just came to represent the duality of the poppy sweetness of girls or high school and youth versus the whole idea that this thing could break your jaw." Did you ever grow up eating Jawbreakers?
No, because my mom heard of the premise of this film and told me I was never allowed them.
Oh, see, I lived in a time when no one had fear. I used to like take my little bike. We lived around the corner from a candy shop in Michigan, which I looked up and it's still in business.
Aww.
And I love it. I looked like their whole story, but we used to buy Jawbreakers from them. The fact that I really want to get one. I tried to find if they were here. I was going to bring you guys Jawbreakers.
I bet you Senor Murphy's is where I would check.
Oh, yeah. I think that's what we looked up. Yeah. So I might bring Jawbreakers for us next time. But yeah, lived in a wild time where that was not a concern of ours.
So funny. Yeah, no, I grew up with an innate fear of Jawbreakers because of this movie.
I think I have one now. I have a choking fear. Phobia that's started to happen.
Good.
But speaking of the Jawbreaker, you'll actually note, which I tried to look out for on this watch, you'll see a lot of like circular themes calling back to the Jawbreaker. So like all the hoop earrings, light fixtures, patterns, wall fixtures. You'll kind of see this. You really have to look for it, but I kind of love that was an intent to keep in the film of this like looming thing that's following the girls around.
I definitely noticed it with the mobiles hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Mobiles? I
think they were like little space.
There was
they
one that was
like
space
candies.
And there was one that was eyes, and they both were like round patterns.
Yeah. So there's always this kind of like looming, their friend is always kind of there and this thing's always kind of haunting them. So I even love with this like, really over the top like teen movie, there's still a lot of depth within it. Like there was a lot of effort and time and care and thought that went into this. Here's the Vice article is called "Perverting the Youth of America: The Oral History of Teen Classic Jawbreaker." It's
Amazing.
from 2016. It's where I pulled like every single quote I had
Love.
from. It's like where I kind of confirmed everything. So, talking about kind of making this film, I have a bigger quote from Darren saying, "I wanted to make a horror film. I like the idea of how something seemingly innocuous in life can spiral out of control and become horrifying. Then I started thinking about those girls in the 80s junior high school who kidnapped their friend on her birthday. And I thought, what if there's this hardcore group of girls who are kidnapping their friends as a prank and something goes wrong and they kill her? This was supposed to be the setup for something very dark that could also be commentary on the world of girls."
Mm-hmm.
And he says, as soon as I started writing the dialogue, it became a black comedy. As soon as I thought of the Jawbreaker as murder weapon, such as like a surreal, absurd candy, which is like, yeah, it's such, I feel like there's not been a candy like it.
Yeah.
That informed the style of the piece and drove the tone. It became more of a blend of dark comedy with an underbelly of horror, which I love.
It's a good description.
Yeah. So production for this was apparently described as very short and hectic. I couldn't really find
wouldn't know anything about
why,
that.
but I do feel like you have this like young 28-year-old director who's really like excited, ambitious, and then
Stop
you have these
calling me out
girls
like this, Al.
I know, this is really just mirroring. You're like, I
Yep.
would not relate.
Mhm.
So they shot it in only 30 days.
Stop calling me out like this, Al.
Sorry. It's confirming though. It's really cool to see like when I find these young writer directors, I'm just like, yeah, like it happens. I feel like people don't talk about it as much. We always see these like older
You
white
tend
dudes.
to see the polished exterior rather than the hectic interior.
Yeah. Yep. So 30 days is how they shot. They did the prom scene in only 3 days, they said.
Wow.
And then...
Put a pin in that for mine.
Okay, yeah, because they said that was like super short. That's why I think it was like very hectic for them.
Yeah.
And especially like for the climax to have a 30-day shooting schedule and only, I mean, I guess you have to really kind of break because there's so many scenes and this is really a dense film.
It's for
surprisingly
under 90 minutes. You have a lot of different locations and days in the narrative and like all those things that make things take longer and be more expensive.
Yeah. So they shot it all around LA and at locations, so no studio time for this film, which makes sense because they had a small budget. I'm not going to tell you what it grossed, but do you want to guess how much?
Ooh, small budget in the 90s, second time director. Was this a studio film?
You know, I forget. I did not write anything. I didn't do any studio stuff. It didn't feel very like
it doesn't feel like a studio film.
Yeah.
I want to guess like 4 mil.
Oh, 3.5.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I feel like again with the cast that they had with the wardrobe, which they actually didn't get a ton of budget for the wardrobe. Yeah, I feel like it's on par. I'm gonna save what it earned later because I really want to talk about that.
Okay, cool.
So we're gonna again, budget will come right back around. Great. So, but speaking of wardrobe, like I said, they didn't have a lot, but they did a lot with what they had. So I didn't realize, and it makes sense. It was the iconic Vicki Barrett who was responsible for the wardrobe. If that name kind of sounds familiar, she did Clueless and Romy Michelle's high school reunion. But Clueless, I mean, we can all talk about like
one of the best costume films of all time.
We still talk about it.
Yeah.
So we have Vicki, who I just would love to spend like, I don't know if she's still alive or not, but I'm assuming.
The stories that woman must have.
Just the way she can talk about fashion. So there are like Vogue articles with her where they kind of like look back on. But I feel like a lot of people at first glance, or like, again, if you haven't seen this film, really want to be like, oh, it's so 90s. It's so like on the verge of Y2K. And it really wasn't inspired by that fashion at all. And she kind of says that out loud in interviews. Wow. Darren kind of says that. So Vicki and Darren kind of worked very close together, which I'm sure he seems like someone who just was like super in love with the fashion, the colors.
And it's so central to this film.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with the Jawbreaker. So they kind of take those colors and that theme of, but they kind of work together to figure out this cohesive look and really flesh out this vision that they had. They said they were immediately on the same page with each other, and said they wanted something, quote, timeless with a little bit of 50s and 60s mixed in. So that's where you get a lot of those silhouettes. So they did research looking at the 80s and 80s, like through 50s eras of fashion, and kind of like blending these fetish silhouettes. So that's why you see like the latex skirts and these little elements, which I love that they put that in there. Of course, like I said, they have the candy colors of the Jawbreaker. And Darren says you can kind of always see those colors throughout the storytelling of each character.
Oh, that's so interesting. Because as you're saying this, I'm thinking the tone of it actually reminded me a lot of like 50s and 60s like pulpy pop musicals, like Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah.
And the kind of color palettes that those used, but I would not have made that connection without you saying that.
Yeah, I think like it's easy to look at it and feel like it feels so of the time. Yeah, but they really wanted to look back. They wanted to do something a little different. And to the fetish elements, Darren actually said, quote, "We wanted hints of fetish in there because goth is just as inspiring to me as any film genre. I've always loved punk rock, Susie Sue and the Banshees, Sex Pistols, Vivienne Westwood." Love Vivienne Westwood. And wanted these influences in there in a candy colored way. It was and he said it was one of the first candy colored goth examples. So he really, which I like, love. I feel like that's so,
what a great
you can see those moments when you really look at it too. I feel like people think goth, they think punk, and I know things have like changed in 2025. Younger generations have like a different idea of what those things are, which happens in culture, but at the time I kind of love this blend that he's trying to achieve, to do something a little bit different for a teen movie. So it's not so time capsule-y in that way, but in tone it is. They also didn't really want it to feel like any other school, so no one's carrying backpacks, if you'll notice. And the girls all carry vintage purses. So I wore vintage today.
Amazing.
Just to like nod, but I kind of love that they took this vintage kind of aspect. So you don't notice it, but it does feel a little,
there's something a little off. Yeah,
kind of like Crybaby in a way. I feel like
very Crybaby. Yeah, I kept thinking this felt a lot like a John Waters movie.
It does. Yeah. It feels like I'm surprised. Like, when did Crybaby come out? Actually, I don't even remember.
Say like 94.
Was it 94? Yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't.
Correct. Travis, please fact check that. 90. Oh wow.
It's weird that wasn't. I didn't see that as a reference, but I'm kind of surprised.
It feels very interesting.
He had to watch.
I'm sure.
So
he's gay. Of course he watched Crybaby.
Not to like, nail me coffin.
Yeah.
Darren kind of talks about Vicky. His quote: "The thing about Vicky is she brought that eye-popping color, but she's also a bit more punk rock, which is the perfect blend. She brought the real sense of fashion to the film. We really wanted to pull from time periods. So again, they looked at 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Everyone's like, it's so 90s, but it's not. If it were, the fashion wouldn't be iconic." Which is so true. You're just doing what's of the time. What makes something iconic is it's a little bit revolutionary. It's this new creation. Totally. So I just thought that was so perfectly worded, and you don't really think about that.
Well, and it almost makes me think, is it more that this film kind of led fashion trends and then this became adopted as this Y2K look, and now we look back on it and we're like, oh, it's so Y2K.
I mean, I think so. This had a really big impact on like pop culture. I feel like kind of a little bit later. But...
I mean, there were a couple of different scenes where it was like, oh, I've seen that shot before, like on Tumblr or on Instagram, and didn't realize it was from this movie.
So funny.
And so it's definitely like, I feel like it is visually, this film has had a very long afterlife.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think I just hope it only gets bigger. Like I said, they had a small budget. They really wanted to look different. So Vicky talks about vintage. She says a lot of things were vintage or from thrift stores that I recreated. Violette's prom dress was pretty funny, she says. It was just a $5 piece at a thrift store that was massive. It was hideous. It was like an old lady's dress, but it was really fun to make it more modern and have some tooling underneath to give it that mermaid flair. So I love that she kind of actually did pull these vintage pieces again,
really cool.
With just being resourceful and kind of turning these things into something new. So again, not taking fashion from the time, but creating their own. And then in the next section I have, it's life imitating art, girlhood, real life high school, It's kind of like, I feel like I have so many different moments of the set that I kind of just wanted to share, and I didn't know how to put it. But I do feel like there was a lot of like life imitating art on this a little bit, because you got to think, you get these like 20-something girls on the set that seemed really fucking fun. With these characters that are so over the top, with this script that's like fucking bonkers, and such a unique like take on like a teen movie, but in a way that like Scream felt very grounded in reality. This one feels so
very heightened.
Yeah, so I can only imagine like being on the set would be so much fun. Again, we have director Darren in the retrospective talking about, wherever you have 3 girls and they're playing 3 bitches of high school and they're shooting a film in a compressed 4-week shoot, that tone affects the dynamic of the girls. So yeah,
frightening.
It doesn't sound awful, but there were definitely like moments.
I imagine there was tension.
Yeah. So we have a few scenes we'll walk through. So the scene where they're going up the stairs, which is so funny because Trav's like, they're carrying her with like those heels on. So it was difficult. These girls were like, we did not work out. We did not realize, but they're carrying like the dead weight of Liz's body. So when they're walking up the stairs and they all fall, it's because they literally couldn't carry her anymore.
Yeah.
So they actually dropped her. The actress was really cool about it, apparently. But Darren actually recalls that moment and says, I remember Rose faking it. She was in the middle. She pretended she was carrying her. And then the actress Julie and Rebecca called her out and says, Rose is faking it, and we had to carry her weight.
But like, that's so in character.
I know. She's like, I got her. And I'm like, oh my God, Rose.
So hard.
I love her. We also have another scene with Rose McGowan, and then oh my God, what did I forget? Judy Greer. So the scene where she like slams her up and then she like lights the cigarette, smokes it. So
hot.
Darren really, I know, it's so good. The whole scene's
incredible.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So Darren actually had told Judy, hey, blow smoke in Rose's face, and Rose didn't know about it. So that moment where she takes a cigarette and throws it is because she was like pissed. She's like, fuck this. Take this and go. So it was kind of like a natural moment that they kept in there. That's so fun. Yeah. And good for her for like staying in character and rolling with it. We also have Judy Greer. So she kind of recalled being on set and said that when she was dressed as Fern on set, no one actually paid her any attention, that she kind of flew under the radar. And then the second that she would show up on set as Fern, that people like engaged with her. Or as Violet, sorry. Thank you. People actually paid attention to her more, talked to her, and then she did recall the crew. All the men of the crew were very intimidated by her and like didn't really want to approach her. So I kind of love that. I was like, oh, were they gonna ogle her? No, they were just like, nah.
I love that.
And then some of the cast recalls that she's way more Violet in person than she is Fern. So I think she was just like very comfortable and in her own in that character. So she reads really tall too.
She does read really tall,
and even compared to the other girls. So I'm like, I can imagine like her being walking on set and you're just like
presence. Yeah.
We also have a little jealousy moment that happened on set, but I think for the best ultimately. So apparently the actress Rebecca walked out. So for the prom scene, you know, they're all coming out of their trailers and they're all dressed up. And she kind of has like a flower crown. And so Rose McGowan saw that and was like, like I have boring hair, like walks back into her trailer. It's like, give me something. And so they gave her that silver headband that we see wrapped around,
which is perfect.
But I would say I think she was right, even in her little jealous
she's
moment.
The queen. She needs to have the best headwear.
Yeah. So she went back in and demanded that, and so that was kind of so like funny. A little dynamic on the set too. She's of like, right, yeah, they kind of got jealous. Well, her outfit would have looked real plain without it. Because she just has that silver tube. Like dress.
It's very simple.
Yeah. So she was right. But I kind of love that there were these moments of like, well, she looks prettier than me and I want this. And I imagine that happened
a lot
more than this case. But this is one that they talked about. Yep. And then kind of like a final shout I wanted to point out is when we have, which I'm not sure if you are familiar. I feel like this is a very like LA local thing. But the shot where we see Violet outside the school on her Corvette, she's on top of the car. It's a little nod to Angeline. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
No.
So she's like a LA legend. She passed, I don't know how many years ago at this point. Um, she kind of was this like mysterious figure for a while. I think it was like in the 80s. All of a sudden these billboards started popping up around town in LA that would just have Angeline on it, and then it would have like her posed in some way. And so media kind of caught wind of her and started putting her in things. Because she's like this blonde with big boobs. It was pink. She was pink, 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 pink everywhere. And so she's kind of this like local icon, and so she kind of just in this mysterious fashion got famous for promoting herself.
Oh, I love that.
And
That
it's
feels
kind of
very
great.
on brand for this movie.
She is still alive.
Oh,
I don't know why I
amazing.
thought she passed. Okay, thank fuck.
Love that Angelina's still with us.
So, and then if you lived there too, she would drive around in her little pink Corvette, but she would sometimes pull off in parking lots and just be parked there. So if you like saw her and went up, you'd have to pay her. Of course, Batty needs to get her bag.
Oh, absolutely.
And you could like do photo shoots, but she would like lay on the car with you and like pose with you. But she kind of was like a self-made icon.
Oh, I love that.
She just told people she was an icon, bought her own billboards, and just
kind of amazing.
Yeah, so that was like a little LA legend nod to her. Please look her up. There is a documentary about her. I don't know why I thought she passed. I feel like there was another. Oh, it was LA Jesus that passed away. He used to hang outside of music venues. And so you'd be drunk and you'd see Jesus.
Oh, amazing.
It was amazing. So yeah, I spotted her once. I like drove behind her, and I feel like I almost got into a fucking car accident to see her. Never got to meet her. Always wanted to. So anyways, that was a little like nod that I loved that they gave in there. So it's very quick. Here we get to critics' response. So this is
so
where we're
scared.
I know. So Jawbreaker premiered on January 30th, 1999 at Sundance Film Festival.
It's a Sundance movie.
It's a Sundance movie.
Fascinating.
Isn't that wild? Yeah. It then was released theatrically in the US on February 19th, 1999. So like a month after, like less than a month after, to disappointed audiences, which bums me out. So I'm gonna have you. Do you want to take a guess at what it grossed in its first weekend and basically overall?
Like 500K?
No, it did better than that.
Okay, thank God.
3.1 million. So almost made its budget back.
No.
Almost. But the cast and crew very much don't agree for many reasons, and neither do I with kind of why it got the response it did. So director Darren said, quote, "When everyone says it only made 3 million opening weekend, what did you expect? It didn't have the marketing other movies had, and it was only on 800 screens, and the critics killed it. That didn't help."
That's gonna do it.
Yeah. It also seemed like no one, I don't know if it's because they were all young. Oh, it must have been a studio thing. So I don't know if it was, everyone was like young and didn't, but a lot of the like cast and crew said they didn't really understand why they got the release they did, because it was intended to be a limited release in theaters and then go straight to DVD because it was a Sony home video release. So I think that was probably somewhere in the contract. I mean, he's 28. He's only made one other film. I just feel like there was a lot of like learning that happened,
sounds like
and maybe a lot of, you know, shitty Hollywood that happened.
Yeah.
So that kind of had something to do with it. Cause I was like, why did no one know what was going on?
Right.
That's why. And like, why did it get a shitty release? So, everyone kind of thought it was going to be this big blockbuster. Didn't realize it was just going to be put in theaters, taken out to be released. So that was the intent for people to have it at home. And so Rose McGowan said to all of this, quote, "When the movie came out, it was a Sony Scream gem, and they had to decide to put their money for advertising behind Jawbreaker or Can't Hardly Wait. And they fucked up and they chose Can't Hardly Wait. I'm sure it's remembered affectionately for people that liked it, but please, which is the superior film?
Oh my God, I love
Let's
her.
be real. One had cultural impact." She's not wrong.
I haven't seen Can't Hardly Wait.
I love Can't Hardly Wait. But I would say cultural impact. It's Jawbreaker.
This movie has had a huge influence.
Yeah, you only think of like, for me, for Can't Hardly Wait, I think cast. They had like everybody. And it's like such this sweet film, and like, you know, Jennifer Love Hewitt's so beautiful in it, and fucking Seth Green is hilarious in it. But I think characters, I think like these like weird and just like very much like But Jawbreaker, I think fashion, I
Mm-hmm.
think dialogue, I think like how it was filmed and how it was shot. Like I
It's
just,
very MTV
oh my
almost. Like
God,
it's just
yeah,
it's so
truly.
iconic.
Yeah. So she is right in saying that.
Yeah.
Um, and then also, like I said, the critics did not receive it well. It's because it got a lot of hate for being a ripoff. So you mentioned Heather's.
Oh, yeah.
So in an interview about the critics, Darren said, quote, actually, I'm going to do the Heather ones first. Okay, so he talks about Heather's and the screenwriter Daniel Waters on that.
Mm-hmm.
He said he thought Darren was ripping him off, and that quote, I was clearly inspired by it, but the only thing is that's similar about the two films is there are 3 high school bitches and murder.
Mm-hmm.
Heather's is really about Winona Ryder and Christian Slater's love story. In this,
Yeah.
you have a devious girl who's running the show. So it got a lot of hate for that reason. When did Heather's come out?
Heather's was 89.
89?
Well, and I think part of what stands apart to me about Jawbreaker, and Heather's is one of my favorite movies
Oh,
of all
we
time.
love Heather's.
We've talked about how much we love
Yeah.
Heather's, but in Heather's, Christian Slater is the one enacting all the violence,
Yeah,
and
Winona
he's
Ryder's like, the fuck?
yeah, he's kind of
At first.
he's manipulating her into going along with it, and
Yeah.
she's very much like, she's participating and she does bad things, but it's like it's the bad apple spoiling the bunch type of story. Whereas this is very much about like, no, the women are evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost wonder if there's a part of like American morality that was just like not ready for that and was like, well, we can handle girls being bitches if it's
Right.
like there's like a really bad guy behind all of it who wants to
Right.
blow up the high school.
Right, but it can't be those innocent girls.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And,
funny. That's a
like,
great take.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the things. I feel so bad that the screenwriter actually said something
That's
publicly.
really mean.
As
I
someone
feel
who
like,
was like probably a really big fan.
yeah, I feel like keep that to yourself, man.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I hate when they it
Yeah.
bums me out a little bit. Darren also talks about Roger Ebert. He said, quote, the Roger Ebert review pisses me off. He co-wrote Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which was
Yeah.
one of the most amoral movies of all time, but it's stylized.
Yeah.
That was a huge influence on Jawbreaker. A girl group was in it. It had all the fashion and the sexual irreverence. And so
Yeah.
he's like, why are you hating on this thing that like you yourself kind of like backed and loved?
This is
So
very Beyond the Valley of the Dolls
yeah,
coded.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you'd love it.
Well, now I feel like I
Yeah.
love it. Well, now I feel like I wouldn't love it.
Well, it's
I know.
Yeah.
Darren.
That makes me so sad.
Yeah. So again, like here we have this writer director who is outwardly giving homage, not stealing and doing something that I think is so groundbreaking. Again, maybe people just weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
To just be like kind of crushed in that. But I'm glad he's getting his vindication in recent years.
Good.
He said, he did go on to say, but the cool thing is people found it, Jawbreaker. It's this thing of pride for people have today. They come up to me and tell me, you know, I saw it in theaters. I took off work. It was a thing.
Oh,
So
I love that.
I do like,
that's really cute.
Yeah. And all's like said and done, to Rose's point, it did have such cultural impact. We have like fashion. There's beauty brands that have lines and palettes named after Jawbreaker still.
Oh, I love
or like
that. That's really
yeah,
cute.
so and music, Hollywood, everything. And so in one particular
impact.
yeah, cultural impact in one particular thing, and I love the pettiness, and we're gonna kind of like leave a little bit on pettiness.
Amazing. That feels so appropriate.
In this article that I read from Vice, they kind of end it and start talking about the cultural impact and like what films were inspired by Jawbreaker. One of them being Mean Girls. That was 2007, I think. And I know
like
it was like based off of a book, but they kind of talk about it and talk about how similar the films are in such a way. And
Mean Girls is beloved.
Yeah, and so Mean Girls got so much love. This got so much hate, but they kind of shade it a little bit and say how much felt like it was stolen, and then how much credit was given to Mean Girls, when really Jawbreaker was one of the ones that didn't do it first, but kind of was the hallway scenes. I know they weren't the first one to do it, but I feel like people remember this hallway scene. But then Mean Girls came out and everyone was like,
oh,
Jawbreaker,
they're the ones who did it. Yeah. Well, and like it even the burn book from Mean Girls and the way they do the credits felt like the end of Jawbreaker.
That the scene where on the phone and they're talking and the shot of her feet and she's doing thing, I'm like, that is Regina George.
Just
that is
stolen.
The entire fucking thing.
And
so,
like I
love Mean Girls.
I love Mean Girls. Love it. this is so much more hardcore. Like,
So
especially
that's what they talk about too.
yeah,
So
I feel like it's particularly the whole thing of like these teenage girls making their friend look like she was raped. Like
I
that
know
that is
that
wild.
scene is
It's
there's like I love how they really have no emotion towards her the
yeah.
whole time. They're like, okay, just how do we get out of it? Like, fuck
Yeah.
her dead friend.
Yeah.
That's done. She's dead.
Yeah.
She's dead,
Relax.
Fern. So they kind of like slight that, and honestly, knowing that, again, doing notes before and watching, I got very irritated with Mean Girls watching
Yeah, now I'm
Jawbreaker.
feeling that.
Yeah, so director Darren said, quote, "It annoyed me at first because it was clear to me that Tina Fey had watched Jawbreaker.
Oh yeah.
Structurally, there are similarities. Tina
Mhm.
Fey is brilliant. Mean Girls is hilarious. It fully deserves recognition. That being said, I think Jawbreaker is, oh my God, I think you said the same thing as him, is way bitchier and more stylish. It's more honest version of Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. The Mean Girls aren't that mean. On
It's
Tuesday,
so
they wear
true.
pink. Wait for this.
Sorry.
On Tuesday, they wear pink. Who cares? Fetch? Really? You're going to make Fetch happen? Fetch is so silly to begin with. Isn't he great?
I love him.
And it's so true.
I've
These
never
bitches
hated
killed
Mean
their
Girls
friend and we're
more.
like, shut up, she's dead.
Yeah.
We're
If
like,
this
we don't have time
podcast
to
will
do
rip the
anything. It'll
sheets.
make
Yeah.
you hate Mean Girls by
Yeah,
accident.
truly.
Yeah, because they really felt like they did not. I don't remember them ever calling back to Jawbreaker.
God. Well, and like I will say, the thing that I like least about Mean Girls, and you can come at me for this if you want, but I think it is a very like moralistic kind of conservative film at its core, in that
It's
the message
bubblegum.
at the end
Yeah.
is like Katie was at her best before she got into makeup and
Right.
boys, and like she should just like go back to the savannah almost. Like I know that's not, it's
The
more
message,
complicated
but
than that, but like so much of Mean Girls revolves around this idea that like women being into femininity
Mhm.
is inherently evil.
Right,
And
right,
I
right.
find that just like boring and problematic.
Yeah.
Whereas here, they're actually evil.
Yeah.
Like they
their
are
core.
framing an innocent
Unapologetically.
man for rape.
Yeah.
Like it's not played by an innocent man,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like this is truly amoral. And
Yeah.
I think Mean Girls like tries to get a little bit of that amorality, but it's a big budget studio film, and I think
Right.
this just was able to go so much farther that
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm gonna like Mean Girls less now.
I know.
Going
Isn't
back
that
and
funny?
rewatching it.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of have like a little like
Yeah.
attitude
eh,
about it now.
eh.
So we'll leave on one last light note
Love.
quote from Darren, which is, "The cool thing about teen movies is there's always a new crop of kids becoming teenagers. They all want to seek out the movies that speak to
Mhm.
them, and Jawbreaker is still so under the radar."
Oh, I
So,
love that.
yeah, I
That's so
I
good.
love this film. I was like dying to read. If I had time yesterday, I was gonna rewatch it again. I love this movie so much.
I'm so glad you chose this. I also want to shout out two things about your movie.
Yeah.
One, Carol Kane, who is another early crush of mine. She's playing the principal. Incredible that this movie has Carol Kane and fucking Pam Grier sharing a scene. Like
it's kind of wild. I feel like they got, for the budget they had, they got so
they got
many
an
people
incredible
in
cast,
this.
which tells
Yeah.
you the actors could tell this was a good script.
Yeah.
But also, and I'm gonna have Travis double check this for us, I think if I saw correctly watching the credits, this is the first film we've ever talked about that had a female director of photography, a female cinematographer.
And of course I didn't fucking talk about
Which
that.
like I love, and that
Ugh.
is so rare. Like yes,
Yeah,
yes,
confirmed.
our first
What's-
female cinematographer.
What's her name? Because I didn't shout her out.
Amy Vincent.
Snaps for Amy.
Snaps for Amy. Which like also that's part of it,
That's
is
pretty
like this
sick.
film
It
feels it is so coming from like a femme gaze.
Yeah.
And like
it really is. It
yeah.
really like it feels, for being like a horror about these bitchy girls that are
Yeah.
not girls.
Yeah.
It feels like a space that feels
It
safe.
feels safe. Yeah.
Like just don't be
It
friends
really
with them. But
does.
it feels like this really cozy space where
Yeah.
nothing's being super like, yeah, I don't know. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, I wish I had shouted her
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
I had too
Amy
many other things to talk about. But yeah,
Vincent.
I think the crew, I think Darren as the writer director and like the true creative around this clearly created such a great space for these women to like act and thrive and kind of do their thing, which I appreciate too. So it seems like he really just trusted and worked well with everyone. And I think that's why this film still holds up so well too. Like,
yeah.
it's just because it does live in this bubble, and he's so right. Like the aspect of even just the fashion alone, not being from a capsule of the 90s, like everyone wants to call it, but he created his own thing, and that's what makes it timeless and iconic. And I'm just like, I love him. I love this movie.
And talking about it made me love it even more.
Oh,
like,
yay.
it really,
Yeah, it was all good stories. So,
that was a
5 out of
delight.
5.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, the Carrie connection actually kind of threw me. I was like, how perfect was that? And we almost went with like ginger snaps. I think
we were talking about a couple other possibilities.
And I'm so glad we accidentally went with this.
Yeah, good choice. Good choice on your part, Al.
Take a break.
Yeah, and come back to prom. We'll be right back. And we're back. I was just saying I have so many stories for you. I'm so excited. I have 14 pages of notes. I have pictures.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we have all of the things for Carrie. It's Carrie. This is one of those. I was looking through, I can't remember which top 10 list it was, if it was the top 10 on AFI's list, but I was looking through a well-reputed top 10 of horror, and I think Carrie was the only one in the top 10 that we hadn't covered yet, and so I was like, ooh, this is gonna be exciting. Yeah, we've really been knocking out the basics. It's also our first Brian De Palma film, so I wanted to give us a little bit of De Palma backstory because he is kind of a horror adjacent director. I have a feeling we'll probably talk about him again sometime. A lot of people compare his work to Hitchcock. He is one of the people who compares his work to Hitchcock. Usually these comparisons are made unfavorably, although he does kind of wink at this in the film with the name of the high school, which is Bates High School.
Oh my God, I didn't know this. Well,
there's also, I noticed for the first time while we were in the scene with the pig mural on it, there's a sign on that says Bates Packing, so the pig company is also
amazing.
Bates. There's also a little De Palma Hitchcock mini tangent here that I had to call out because as I was reading interviews with him, he said something that was so obnoxious about Hitchcock that I had to bring in a quote just to shame him for it. So 2 years after this film is released, this is from 76, so in like 78, he does an interview, and the interviewer asks him what genre he'd consider his movies. And he says, yes, Hitchcock did it. I don't know what people called it before they coined Hitchcockian. There must have been some sort of a dime store novel name for it. You never know. De Palmian?
Oh my God.
Bro, get a hold of yourself. Like, the difference is Hitchcock wasn't going around calling things Hitchcockian and telling other people to. So
cringy.
Very cringy. He also, so Brian De Palma, probably the thing most people know him from directing is Scarface. He also did Carlito's Way. He did Blowout.
This makes sense.
Getting a picture. Yes, painting a picture.
Very bro-y picture.
Very bro-y picture. I really love his movie Sisters, which is one of his very first films from Canada. Super low budget. Stars one of the lead actresses from Black Christmas, actually.
Oh, nice.
But I have heard that his film Dress to Kill, which I have not seen, is super transphobic. And I wanted to shout this out because just from reading the description, you can tell why it's transphobic. It stars Michael Caine as a serial killer who dresses up as a woman to kill people. So I just felt like we needed to give that context to Brian De Palma's career before diving into this movie that is so much about femininity and the experience of womanhood, because you need to know when there's like a transphobe involved in something like this, because I find this movie to be so like grounded and real in the way it treats its female characters, and honestly I have to just chalk a lot of that up to Tabitha King. Like,
I was gonna say, I feel like that's where the writing is.
That's where the writing comes in.
I'm shocked he did this.
It's really interesting that he was the one who chose this project, right? And we'll talk about that because he was really excited about this film. But put a pin in that. We'll get right back to it in just a second. As I mentioned, this is the first published novel by Stephen King. This is also the first Stephen King to ever be adapted to film. So this is the Stephen King adaptation that launches literally 100 Stephen King adaptations. More than 100, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say thousands.
Thousands,
It
yeah.
feels like it sometimes.
It really does. And we've talked about many of them on the podcast. All of those we would not get without Carrie.
Wow.
Screenplay is by Lawrence D. Cohen. Also, I'm sorry, I'm talking very fast. I have so many notes to get through. If you need me to slow down, tell me, or just like wave.
For you.
Great. Lawrence Cohen also gets a screenplay writer credit for the 2013 remake, and he wrote the 90s miniseries adaptation of It. So he is a Stephen King adapting
dude
specialist.
Yeah.
Has not done a whole lot of other work, but most of what he has done has been adjacent in one way or another to the writings of Stephen King. It also seems like he was hanging around the De Palma crew a lot, because looking through some of his other credits, because he has so few screenwriting credits, I was like, what else was this guy doing? He was like working additional crew positions, or like low on the totem pole in other parts of the crew for a bunch of Scorsese projects at the time. And Scorsese and De Palma were buddies. So he was kind of hanging in this group.
Got it.
Kind of trying to paint a picture of the bro-y environment out of which this film magically emerges.
Yeah, the privilege of all of them.
Yeah, it's really... De Palma was part of this group of like American indie filmmakers who come up at this time with Scorsese, with he's friends with George Lucas, which we're going to talk about in a second. There's a lot of crossover between this film and the first Star Wars. So put a pin in that.
Yeah.
He's one of the boys.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the girls.
Yes, please.
We have Sissy Spacek as Carrie White. She's on the new series Dying for Sex, which I desperately need to watch. I've been getting a lot of ads for it. Looks really up my alley. She was Mrs. Walters in The Help. She's Rose in David Lynch's The Straight Story. She's Loretta Lynn in A Coal Miner's Daughter. She also is in the Stephen King-inspired Castle Rock, and she's in two of my personal favorite movies of all time, Three Women and Badlands, which
Badlands you've talked about.
I fucking love Badlands. Also another movie in which she like watches in shock as the house burns down around her, her parents' house. So there's some interesting parallels between her character in Badlands and this, and the people she met on Badlands are the reason she gets this job. So put a pin in that. We're going to come back to Badlands. We also have Piper Laurie as Margaret White. She is the best. She's Catherine Martell on Twin Peaks. She's Sarah Packard in The Hustler, and she's Aunt Em in Return to Oz. She's also Mrs. Norman in Children of a Lesser God. We have Amy Irving as Sue Snell, who was, I believe, briefly married to Steven Spielberg, who met her on the set of this movie, where apparently a lot of people were coming because they heard there were so many hot women on it. And so this was like a dating pool for the Hollywood guys. Yep, it's gonna get grosser, don't worry. So Amy Irving, who is she? She's the voice of Miss Kitty in Five Goes West. Yes.
Got Travis there.
Isn't that amazing? Had to put that first. She's Barbara in Traffic. She's Mother Foster in Tuck Everlasting, which was a childhood fave of mine.
Same.
I'm like scared to go back and rewatch it because I'm worried it wouldn't hold up on rewatch. But
I rewatch it like once or twice a year.
Oh my god,
every
I love
summer
that.
I like put
amazing.
It on. Yeah,
so that's Amy Irving.
Yeah, it makes me cry every time.
She's also Emily Sloan on Alias, and she was Melanie Lynch on 0 Hour. And her mother here is played by her actual mom, which I thought was very cute. And we have some stories about that coming later. And we get introducing John Travolta.
I know. Was this his first or one of his first?
This was, so I have that in my notes.
I'm sorry. I'm just putting that out there.
Do you really need me to tell you who John Travolta is?
No, we don't need to go into it. Scientologist.
Yeah. Is he really?
Oh, he's deep.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they're going to come for me now again.
Explains a little bit of the like obviously closeted nature of John Travolta.
He gives me uncanny, and he icks me out. I am so... You know, I'm trigger warning. Trigger
warning, Travolta.
Just
Travolta
slander.
warning.
He icks me out and has icked me out my whole life. I don't know if it's like you know how people are like, oh, like you were talking about, oh, I saw her and like she's why I'm like she was like my coming of whatever.
My coming of queer.
Coming of queer. That's almost what I said. He is like my reason why I
He's your coming
almost
of queer.
didn't like, like
John Travolta turned you gay.
Yeah. He icks me out so bad, which is perfect for this character.
It's perfect, and I also
Sorry, I just had to give a moment.
I have one set story about him that is actually surprisingly cute, but we'll get back to that. He at this point had been in one movie called The Devil's Rain, and he had just started to become popular on Welcome Back, Kotter. But this is this role is very big for his film career, and immediately after this, he goes on to Saturday Night Fever, which is what makes his career.
Okay, I couldn't remember like which came first with that for him.
Saturday Night Fever comes out 1 year after this, so they're right next to each other.
Wild.
And we have Nancy Allen as Chris Hargensen. She is Anne Lewis in RoboCop. She's Nancy in The Last Detail, and De Palma brings back both her and John Travolta for Blowout in 1981. So we get some cast reunions from this. There are a lot of variations on the tagline for this film, but they all kind of boil down to, if you've got a taste for terror, take Carrie to the prom.
Oh,
which I kind of like for 76.
It feels that. Also, the way you kind of said it too, like I can hear that in like trailers.
Oh yeah, it's that's one of the trailer announcement ones.
Okay, yeah, that feels good. That feels right.
So, how does De Palma, who's still very early in his career at this point, get attached to this project? Well, a writer friend of his recommends that he reads the book. And he immediately reads it and is like, I gotta make this movie. So here's a quote from him.
Can I do a pause really quick? When did the book come out in comparison?
The book came out in 74, I believe. So,
wow.
Like right before this.
Thank you. Sorry.
No. So quote from De Palma. Quote, I found out that nobody had bought it yet. A lot of studios were considering it, so I called around to some of the people I knew and said, it's a terrific book, I'm very interested in doing it, and then nothing happened for, I guess, 6 months. Then I met producer Paul Monash and told him what I had in mind and that I wanted to do it. He listened to me, but nothing happened for another 6 months because somebody was writing a script from it. Some lady from Texas had done the first draft. Then the project moves over to United Artists. United Artists starts calling around to ask what De Palma's like to work with, and finally he gets the gig. I could not find any info about this mysterious Texan lady who I really want to know more about.
Yeah.
But the screenwriting gig lands with Cohen, who writes a pretty faithful adaptation that's accepted by the studio on its second draft. Let's talk a bit about that adaptation. So, as I mentioned, King's first book, and at the time the rights get picked up, King is just 26. Same age that Sissy Spacek is while she films this. And according to an interview that he gave in 2010, he only earned $2,500 for the film rights to this.
Oh, wow.
Which he comes across as pretty positive about. He's like just happy that he got the opportunity on his first book. He's like,
sure.
There's like a really funny quote that I didn't write word for word, but he's like, I don't know what would have happened to like my sanity or my marriage had this not happened with Carrie.
Oh my God.
So, which like you can imagine.
Yeah.
But again, thank God for Tabitha. So he is grateful for the experience, looks back on this fondly. This is one of the adaptations of his work that he's most pleased with, which we know is rare for Stephen King. And he actually, they changed the ending from the book to the movie, and Stephen King likes the ending of the movie better.
Oh.
Wild. We know that never happens.
Yeah, do you have what
the original ending was? I sure do.
Yeah.
We're about to get to it. So, talking about some of the differences between the film and the novel. The book is an epistolary novel, which means that it's told through like accounts and testimonies and police reports and stuff like that of the characters.
I didn't know
which
that.
Makes me all the more interested in reading it, right? And part of it is the memoir of Sue Snell. And so, obviously, this is not the approach the film takes, but the novel ends with a girl essentially being set up as the next Carrie, which thankfully we don't get here. There's like I think Sue Snell is an adult, and people are like, if I'm remembering correctly, people are contacting her because this new little girl is showing signs of telekinesis. And they're like, oh no, it's happening again.
Can you imagine like Carrie franchise?
I know. Which like obviously this does go on to spring a franchise, but
not in that way. Like not like Scream where
right.
like it gets taught like it's a new killer every time.
Passed on. Yeah. I find that deeply cheesy, to be honest. I'm sure there's a way that it could have been made to work, but I don't know that Stephen King this early in his career had the tools in his toolbox too.
Yeah.
And he agrees. He's like, that wasn't the right ending to it. This was the right ending. However, put a pin in the ending because the ending that we get to the movie is also not the ending that the movie was supposed to have. There was going to be a different ending, and we'll talk about
Damn.
that. So, the loss of Sue's testimony was actually a big conflict point between De Palma and Cohen writing the screenplay, because, as Cohen put it, quote, I was reluctant to lose her presence as the one person whose conscience leads her to try to do the right thing, only for it to turn out disastrously. Brian explained that he didn't want to risk cutting away from the main narrative, even for a second, and proposed that we might instead find ways to repurpose her material more directly. What if Sue, curious to see how her plan for Carrie had worked out, came to prom earlier and thus figured more significantly in the action? So her sneaking back into prom, also an addition for the movie. This did not happen in the book. Another major change comes with the aftermath to the prom. In the book, after the pig's blood gets dumped, Carrie goes out to the lawn, kind of lies down, has like a come to Jesus moment, and then decides to go back in and take revenge. Which
I love, but her just standing there,
it's
while
so much
everyone's
better.
chaotic around her.
It's so
her
much better. Yeah.
Of like all of these thoughts, she's probably like, you know what I mean? There's so much coursing through her.
Yeah. And we'll talk about
freeze
some of
response a
what
little bit.
Sissy Spacek used as inspiration for that. But there were a couple of
Going
reasons
back
they
in, though.
decided not to do this. One was it would be a nightmare for continuity to have her go out, like kind of roll around on the grass a little
Sure.
bit, see what that does to the blood, and then she comes back inside.
Right.
Blood continuity was a big problem on this already.
Oh.
They could not have dealt with that being added on. However, also, as Cohen says, quote, having Carrie deliberately consider and then take revenge felt like an extra step. It changes the meaning completely, and more importantly, it worked against us. We wanted the audience to feel empathy for her. So in what became a huge tonal change, we instead had her remain on stage as she's devastatingly humiliated and then respond defensively when it all becomes too much.
Yeah.
Which is so much...
It would have been so out of character that we've seen from her to have this moment of like,
am I going to kill everybody? Yes, I'm going to go kill everybody.
Yeah, I just, like, that would have been so wildly, like... That would have thrown the second half of it off so much.
It would have been harder for me to buy. It feels much more real that it's like she can't get off that stage and she wants to disappear into the earth, and so she makes everything else disappear instead. You know?
Yeah.
Who among us did not dream of such things in high school? Also, Miss Collins was supposed to live, and that's what Cohen wrote. De Palma was the one who chose to kill her off.
It hurts me every time because I know it's been a really long time since I've seen it, and I was like, in my head I was like, she kills the people, like she kills the woman,
she kills everybody. Yep.
And
it
hurts so
devastating
bad. Yeah,
especially because I couldn't find the exact interview that this was from, but I found a bunch of other people referencing the actress who plays Miss Collins intentionally playing it as a queer character. Which we love, which makes a whole lot of sense. And so heartbreaking. In the book also, this is a big part of one of the major changes regarding the ending. Carrie sets the whole town on fire. She like makes a whole bunch of gas stations explode, which then like spreads fire everywhere, and De Palma just didn't have the budget. Which honestly, I think it is so much better that it's like her destruction is limited to the areas that destroyed her.
Yeah, and then we get like the car flip scene is really great too. It's just a little bit more impactful. Although the whole town burning down
would have been pretty cool. This film also downplays the telekinesis compared to the book, which is a smart choice for the medium because it would be real easy to overuse the wire gags. This is not the Invisible Man.
Sure.
And that, like, Carrie does not move around like this. It would not sell as well, you know?
Chair rocking. That makes sense, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So, moving on to production. Let's talk about the cast and crew.
Yeah.
How do we get Sissy Spacek in this role? She is not the first one De Palma wants, even though 2 years later, in that interview that I told you about, he can't remember the name of the actress he actually wanted to cast because she was that good. But Sissy, he's like completely blocked it out of his mind. But so Sissy Spacek is still to this day married to Jack Fisk, whose name might sound familiar.
Yeah.
Do you recognize?
Yeah, a little bit.
Fisk. Yep, he is the art director. Well, he's credited as art director here. He actually is the production designer. Oh, funny.
I'm thinking of fucking Daredevil.
Oh my god.
Sorry, that's what I'm thinking of.
So funny.
Sorry.
So at this point in time, he was being referred to as the art director. He's the production designer. He's the one, you know, like creating the look of the film.
Yeah.
And he worked on all of Terrence Malick's first 8 films. So he met Sissy on Badlands. And then worked on multiple David Lynch projects, which is maybe where you recognize the name from. And he was also Lynch's childhood best friend. He is incredible. Wow. He was recently the production designer for Killers of the Flower Moon. He's amazing. And because she's married to Fisk, and Fisk works with Brian De Palma, and Brian De Palma wants to bring him onto this project, they're friends with each other socially already, but she knows that Brian doesn't want her for this role, which is heartbreaking. Yeah. So Fisk has to first convince Sissy to audition, and then convince De Palma to let her audition.
Look at him setting them up.
Yeah, it's so cute. And here's a quote from De Palma. Quote, Sissy came in to try out, and of course she was quite good. She played all the parts. She played Sue Snell, Chris Hargensen, Carrie. She played everybody and played them all really well. And I was sort of keeping her in the back of my mind, but I was still very much oriented towards this other girl. Then when we had our screen tests, Sissy tested for the part of Carrie and made everybody else look silly. And I can tell you exactly what she did for that screen test because it's amazing.
Is it online to watch?
It's not online, but Sissy Spacek has given some amazing interviews about it.
Cool.
So she, at this point, she has described herself in interviews as like feeling very sorry for herself at this point because she's like, I know that that I'm not who he wants, and I'm his friend, and he doesn't think I can do this, and I've just like killed it reading all these parts, and he still doesn't want me, and he's known me for years, and so she's like, I'm gonna fucking prove him wrong.
Love.
So the night beforehand, she rereads the entire book just to prepare, just real quick, and then shows up with her face unwashed, her teeth unbrushed, and Vaseline rubbed in her hair to make it look greasy, and wearing an old ratty sailor dress that her mom had made her in the 7th grade to the audition.
Oh my gosh.
And, as she said, because she was feeling used and abused by Brian De Palma, she used that for the audition, and it came across as Carrie. Oh, damn. And so she fucking knocks it out of the ballpark with Vaseline in her hair.
Oh my god.
I love her.
Love that.
I fucking love
She's like,
her.
You know what? Fuck it.
And my girl was devoted to this part. She had the studio. This is a little preview of our production facts, but she had the studio put a trailer on the set for her to sleep in when they were shooting the scenes where she's covered in blood. Because she wanted to, for continuity, stay in the bloody prom dress for 3 days straight and just walk to go like sleep just right behind the studio so that she disturbed the blood placement as little as possible.
That's so funny. Which I would say, if no one believes that you can do that, have you ever like I don't do it anymore. I love washing my face at night, but like where you had a really good beat and you wanted to leave it on and you can just like tell yourself to sleep on your back perfectly
and wake up and it's like mostly fine.
Yeah.
So she did that for 3 days straight. Also covered her trailer in religious decorations. She was studying the Gustave Doré illustrated Bible. And for her body language, I love this, she researched the body language and postures of people being stoned for heresy and tried to recreate some of those poses that she'd seen in like religious artwork for the character. So some of the more striking like physical postures she takes, that's where that's coming from.
Makes so much sense.
We'll talk more about that in a bit. And for the shower scene, which she's super nervous for, that one at the beginning, where, you know, she's nude, everybody's nude.
Yeah, I mean, the scene that sets everything
up.
Yeah.
The scene that most people, including me, remember as the opening scene, even though the opening scene is actually the, I think it's the volleyball.
Oh, yeah,
game.
the volleyball.
They're like, they're
the sports.
they're playing sports ball of some kind. I don't know. We've established this. I'm not a straight man. So for that scene, she's really nervous, especially because they shoot Sissy's part first before shooting all of the other actresses. So she's got to like be the first one to get nude. And she goes up to De Palma and is like, okay, talk me through this scene. What should it feel like? And De Palma thinks for a second and he's like, it should feel like getting hit by a Mack truck. But the thing is, Sissy's husband, Jack, has in fact been in a car accident. And so she turns to Jack on the set and she's like,
what does it feel like?
Yeah, she's like, tell me what being hit by a Mack truck is like.
Trauma for me really quickly.
Yeah, and so he does, narrates it for her.
Yeah.
And she said that the look on her face, she is recreating what he's told her about this accident when he was a little kid. And it was like Christmas time, and he was like looking at these Christmas lights, and then all of a sudden these headlights swerve towards him, and that's what she's picturing as she like sees the blood on her hand. And her husband Jack is the one off screen putting the blood in her hand. So like all through it, her husband is there kind of helping her through emotionally, which I think is really
that feels
cute.
comfy and nice.
Yeah. Nancy Allen was the very last to audition, Chris, our mean girl.
Oh yes.
And just like we were talking about last episode, she was about to give up on the industry when she got the gig, and then goes on to be married to director Brian De Palma from 1979 to 1983, which is particularly interesting given that, remember the scene where she gets slapped?
Yeah.
Brian De Palma beforehand, without telling her, told her scene partner to actually slap her, and then made her do it 30 times.
30
times.
Oh, fuck that.
According to Nancy Allen.
I feel like he enjoyed that probably a little too much.
That's the thing, is like, so you made this woman get slapped 30 times and then you married her? Like,
well, they weren't married for
long, but it feels a little bit to me like Brian De Palma was maybe not having a proper director reaction to watching that slap happen. Which also, like, just talk to your actors, make sure that both of them are consenting to the thing before you do it. Don't spring it on them. Yeah.
Different than the cigarette smoke in the face.
Yeah, that's
not great,
very different. That's like, that I can live with.
Physical.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
It's not getting slapped 30 times unexpectedly. Meanwhile, Piper Laurie, our mother, has been taking a 15-year hiatus from film at this point. She hasn't been in anything since 1961's The Hustler, pretty much. And at first, she didn't like the script. But then her husband makes a comment to her about how Brian De Palma has like a very comedic tone. And all of a sudden she goes, "Oh, this is a satire. Hell yeah, I can get behind that." And so she plays the entire thing to her mind as a comedy. And apparently she is cracking up in between takes the entire time, which
that's so creepy. And I love it in like the best way.
It's amazing because, as we're going to talk about, she gives one of the most terrifying screen performances of all time.
Yeah, but it doesn't give like she's playing. It feels like she's so authentic in what she's delivering, though.
She thinks that it's all fucking hilarious. So she's like, you know, giving the lines about like, "I can see your dirty pillows," and she's just like cracking up to herself.
That's wild that she came at it from that, because her performance, here's the thing though, her performance does feel so isolated from the rest of the tone.
She's in a different world, which suits the character.
In the way, I was gonna say in a way that like fits the character, but to hear that she like actually
she thought it was a comedy
for a completely different reason is so funny, because I was thinking even when she's right at the end with chasing Carrie around after she stabs her, and she's like just smiling. She looks so very cult-like though too, just very like so smiley but so innocent and pure in that, but it's because she did have a light tone about the whole thing.
Well, and
that makes so much sense.
And she is the one responsible for a lot of the things that make that character so iconic. She fought for a lot of stuff that De Palma wanted to cut. She suggested a lot of things that De Palma wouldn't have thought of. We're going to talk about that as we get to it. Also want to shout out, though, we've talked about Piper Laurie once before because she was in The Faculty.
Yeah. I was like, when I saw her name, I always forget about her, that she's in that role.
Well, I know we talked about how they were like, oh, is she going to be able to stab in the right scary way? And they're like, oh yeah, she's in Carrie.
She stabs Carrie.
She knows how to stab. So here's De Palma on casting Piper. He says, quote, "I met Piper and she came in looking like Margaret White with this red hair and black outfit, and I said, my God, this is it. I liked the idea of making Margaret White very beautiful and sexual instead of the usual dried up old crone at the top of the hill," which that's another difference from the book, is like both Margaret and Carrie are supposed to be very unattractive. And I think it makes it all the more powerful that they are both like hot. And De Palma was shooting this at the same time that George Lucas was working on Star Wars. And so couple of things. One, they bonded over being the two bearded guys on the lot. So they ended up becoming friends over this, according to editor Paul Hirsch, who I'm going to have a lot of other quotes from coming up. And the two films shared casting sessions.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there's like there's
That's
a
so
big
wild.
urban legend that at first the parts were supposed to be reversed, and Carrie was supposed to be played by, oh my gosh,
Carrie Fisher?
Carrie Fisher. Yes. Thank you. Jesus
got
Christ. That Carrie Fisher was supposed to be Carrie, and that Sissy Spacek was supposed to be Princess Leia, and that they flipped.
Can you imagine?
This is largely considered to be false.
Okay.
However, all of the auditions, they had both George Lucas and Brian De Palma sitting at the table together, and they all just went through them together. And
God, that's so cool.
Get this, they would kind of like, as they shared sessions, George would give the intro speech, Brian would give the closing speech, and a lot of the time Brian would start his half too soon and cut George Lucas off.
Stop.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So
that's so cool. I'm sorry.
It's so satisfying, right?
That.
Yeah.
How interesting.
I think it's the actor who plays Tommy is like, well, I didn't get Luke Skywalker, but I got this.
Stop it. You got to audition in front of George Lucas. That's pretty cool. You know?
It's a pretty good consolation prize being in Carrie. So moving on into the making of, do you want to take a guess at the budget?
1999 studio. Math. It's so hard because it's such a
there's so many practical effects in this movie. So much burns, so much gets destroyed, so many cars are flipped, they roll so many times.
Okay, you're making me add $1 million every time you've said something. So like 10 million?
1.8.
Oh, damn.
Isn't that wild?
How dare you trick me like that? Mind tricks.
1.8. And
Holy
originally
shit.
the studio only wanted to give De Palma 1.6, which, given the popularity of horror at the box office time, like, think of it. This is coming right off the heels of like The Exorcist, Jaws.
Sure.
These are the movies that are making a ton of money, and they only want to give him 1.6. It gets bumped up to 1.8, which in today's money would be just shy of 10 mil. So, you know, it's still on the lower side for a film like this, but makes a little bit more sense, I guess, thinking about the size of the special effects. The exteriors of the White family home were shot in Santa Paula. The high school exteriors were shot at Palisades Charter High, and almost all of the interiors were on a soundstage, and the gymnasium in particular was shot on the same soundstage as Citizen Kane.
Oh,
which I thought was fun. Speaking of sound stages from last week. Was supposed to be a 6-week shoot, ends up going for 50 days.
Oh, dang.
And out of that little preview, you said your prom scene took 3 days?
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Oof.
2 weeks of this shoot. What was supposed to be a 6-week shoot. You're supposed to spend a third of your schedule on the prom scene. Which at first I was like, that's insane. And then I timed it out in the movie and I was like, okay, the prom scene is like 20 minutes of its runtime. That, I guess, does make sense.
Is it 20 minutes?
It's something around that, yeah.
I mean, there is like so much happens. So, like, the prom scene almost feels broken up in 2 parts too. Like,
it really does.
The pre-crowning and the post-crowning.
Yeah, pre-blood and post-blood, yeah. So it, I guess, kind of makes a little bit more sense, but still just shocked me. Production begins in March of 1976, which again feels like a crazy turnaround to me because the film was then released in November of the same year. March to November.
And I had to math that one too.
Yeah.
Damn.
Which means they probably finished shooting in May. So they essentially have 6 months from the time they finish shooting to the time the film is in theaters.
Wow.
Which is... Damn. That scares me so much.
Yeah, a long time.
And normally... I would have shouted out the cinematographer earlier in the episode. There's a reason that I saved it to here, which is because we have drama. This project had 2 DPs.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And why? Because production starts with Isidore Mankowski, who later goes on to shoot the Muppet movie.
Love.
He is not listed in the credits. He and De Palma have a huge falling out, and De Palma fires him. Nobody knows why. Not even his replacement, who I listened to a ton of interviews with. He brings on Italian DP Mario Tosi instead. And all I've been able to find out is just creative differences, which is not helpful.
Oh, I hate when they say that, though.
I know. I'm like,
You
know
know it
it's
was
bad.
not that.
You know it's bad.
Yeah, creative differences is code for there was some shit
Yeah.
that went down. Heavy shit.
And I mentioned this to you before we recorded. This film has the most like special features, like bonus
Yeah.
DVD content of anything I've covered. There are one-on-one interviews with the editor, the DP,
Wow.
the actors, the screenwriter, and I listened to all of them, and they're all like a half an hour long.
So nice.
In addition to like the behind the scenes featurette. So there's so much content about this film. I watched a very long interview with Tosi about this, and he's incredibly diplomatic, sounds like a very kind man. But it sounds like they had some tension too. And one of the things that he points out, he's like, I would have loved to work with De Palma again. That man never uses the same cinematographer twice, which tells you something.
Yeah.
Especially because most of the rest of his crew, he brings back over and over again. Like, he loves working with Paul Hirsch as editor. So it's just, he and his cinematographers have some issues.
Yeah, do you think it control? Like, he is like, if you're new, I can control you more?
I do think it's partially that, because as I was hearing about, like, okay, what was his direction style like?
Yeah.
He's somebody who likes to really rehearse the actors beforehand so that when he gets to the set, he's only thinking about camera and like mainly giving directions to camera.
Got it.
But he's also somebody who he storyboards everything very loosely with like stick figures and stuff like that, but then lets the DP place the camera. So he'll talk with Tosi beforehand about what he wants, but then lets Tosi actually kind of have a lot of control, which is not necessarily the most typical approach.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting. It's like he actually, from all of the interviews I've heard, he gives his editor a lot of creative freedom. He gives the actors a lot of freedom to improvise. He gives Tosi freedom to place the camera. He's just kind of a dick.
Yeah,
is the sense that I get.
Totally like an asshole.
So yeah, I think even part of it is partially that De Palma is a very visual director. He's somebody who, one of the things that he's most known for is like the way he uses POV shots, and the way, like, he stages a story for a camera in a very particular De Palma way. And I think because of that, as we're going to talk about, there are a few specific shots in this film that were unbelievably difficult to achieve, and so I think he pushed for a lot of technical perfection. So I think that's part of it. But like,
wild, he doesn't use the same people.
I know. You would think, particularly given how much the cinematography is essential to what he's trying to achieve, you would think that he would like find one person and stick with them. But nobody lives up to his standards, apparently.
Yeah, I'm like, does he want all the credit if he works with the same person? It's like, oh, the two of them created this versus just Brian. Like, he gets the...
And looking back, Tosi does not love the lighting on this film in particular, and says that he wished he'd done it with softer lighting and more bounce, which I told to my gaffer, and she lost it. She was like, why would you do that?
Yeah, that feels wild.
And especially because, so I went on a tangent about this, because partially because I was trying to find more info about the conflict with the first cinematographer.
Yeah.
This led me back to good old cinematography.com and the forums there, where I found, guess who? Our good old friend David Mullen, the DP from The Love Witch, talking about this and giving really specific detail about all of the lenses, all of like the filters that they used for this. So highly recommend if y'all want more technical info. David Mullen has like a point-by-point breakdown of like exactly what he thinks basically every scene was shot with, and it's amazing. Loved seeing our nerdy friend come back.
I was gonna say, it's such like a specific thing. I love
know. Satisfying little PD tidbit, production design, to make the White's home kind of as gothic as they wanted it to be, which like that is a very gothic house. The director and producers basically took field trips to religious souvenir shops and did most of the buying for those pieces themselves, which is really rare. Usually the director and producers are not the ones doing that. But I loved that. I loved that they could tell that was so essential to this film, and that is one of my favorite parts of it visually, is just the way that religious artwork is integrated through it.
So that house is incredible.
The shot of the dining room where you start on the painting of the Last Supper and then pull out to see Sissy and Piper sitting at opposite ends of the table.
It's so good.
It's so good.
All
Ugh.
the scenes in that house are some of my favorite.
Right?
That and like the prom scene pre blood,
which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
The dancing part of the prom scene in particular,
amazing.
that's one of those like incredibly difficult technical shots that we'll get to in a second. Before that though, quick little art history tidbit. That iconic prom scene shot where she's standing with her hands like this with the flames behind her. Look at this 1851 painting, The Study for Lady Macbeth.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's the same image.
It's basically just like inverse of colors
yes,
too.
Yeah.
Ooh,
it's so satisfying, right?
You have to throw that up for people to see.
I'll put that on the Instagram.
It's like the same thing. It's just inverse color where like she's for those listening.
And
most
like
of you.
and the fact that it's Lady Macbeth also, which is just, that's a character that's so much about vengeance. Like it
very cool.
Perfect. Now we come to Injuries Corner.
Oh no. Other than the slap, injury one.
Injury one. This film had so many injuries on it.
More than Bride of Frankenstein.
Honestly, yeah.
no.
Like it is so bad.
No.
So let's talk about PJ Souls, our shared actress. She's Norma, who's the one who's always wearing the red baseball cap, which apparently
that bitch is so gay.
It's incredible. It has a fucking rainbow on it. God. I mean, come on.
The fact that she wears and Trevor's like, it was the 70s. Everyone, the rainbow didn't mean gay, and I'm like, the bitch wore it to
Look at the context. Look at the context.
She wore it to prom.
Okay, can I just say,
she was like, can I be butch, please? Why do I have to wear a dress? If I have to wear a dress, I'm wearing this hat. One
of the funniest shots in the movie to me is when she's getting her hair done, and she just has the cap on top of the hairdryer. Like,
oh God, yeah, she might be my favorite actor to watch throughout the entire thing. Like if you just watch the movie and look at her the entire time, she's fantastic.
So that red ball cap she wore to her audition. De Palma becomes obsessed with it. He's like, bring it back, make sure you bring it.
Okay, that's why I agree with him.
She shows up to set and the first thing he says to her is, do you have the ball cap? And she's like, yeah, of course I do. And then when it comes to filming the prom scene, she shows up all dolled up and he's like, where the fuck is your ball cap? And she's like, I'm at prom. I just got my hair done. I'm not wearing the ball cap. And he's like, you're wearing the ball cap.
Yes, she is. Oh my God. Actually, I like him for that specifically. Yep. Because it's such a funny, again, this movie's like so gay in a way that I don't really for it being this gay.
This is a very lesbian film.
Oh, but that cap, it's
so gay.
It's like so perfect to a character in a where the focus shouldn't be on these other characters. Everyone's so perfect in it.
And like it's a tiny detail that tells you so much. It's also part of how her character got to be as big as it is because she was originally only supposed to be on for 2 weeks. And when they were filming the volleyball scene, she improvised the hitting Sissy Spacek with her cap and he was like, I need more of this. So that's how we get the Norm that we all know and love. Which,
that's incredible.
She's some of the best comic relief in the movie. Anyway, Norma gets a burst eardrum on this movie from the scene, when her character's death, when like the water hose, the pressure from it comes, it hits her directly in the ear. And the shot that's in the movie is the shot of her eardrum bursting. The close-up you see where her head like kind of turns to the side, you can see right before it cuts her starting to wince. She lost her hearing for 6 months after this movie. 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That makes me sick. I used to have I had like ear infections as a kid and then I get like sometimes they plug up really bad. I have to go to the doctor. God. But it like throws off my equilibrium because I can't hear out of it.
That's the thing. And when you have an injury to only one ear, that's your...
And you feel so nauseous. I don't think people really realize like how fucked that feeling is. So that I actually feel that for her because I'm like immobile.
I had to go back and watch that shot a couple of times. Just like
owie.
It's so awful, and you can really see it as it's happening. Like
I'm good. I'm not gonna watch that.
Yeah,
pass.
She's amazing. And there were several other injuries during the prom scene, which left people. There was like a cracked rib. Did
they use a real grade like hose?
Yes, sure did. And Brian De Palma was like, no, I want it directly on the actor. Like, no, he was not great.
Shit, yeah. I think
Several
you're fine.
yeah, several other injuries, which all of this leads to people feeling shaken and scared for their safety when performing stunts. In particular, Betty Buckley as Miss Collins. So
Oh no.
when the basketball backboard falls on her,
Yeah.
how they were shooting that, it was on ropes with like a balsa wood cushion in place, which is supposed to like come and it's supposed to break the balsa
You still
wood.
have like this heavy thing coming down on
It's
you.
huge.
Oh.
And also, if you've seen this many people get injured and one person just like lost their hearing and it's still not back, how are you going to feel safe?
Oh.
And so she has a stunt person who's supposed to do it first, but she says, quote, "It was not going to crush the person in the shot. That was the safety mechanism. Was that there's this balsa wood and we're not showing the cut immediately in that shot."
Okay.
And I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And so the terror you see from Miss Collins when that happened was absolutely real.
Ugh.
So she's actually scared for her life doing that. And lest you think we're done with the terrifying set stories, we're not. Here's a quote from Cam Op, Joel King, about the car flip scene.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, stunt coordinator Dick Zeiker loaded that thing up with so much dynamite, and they had a cannon underneath that car. That's what rolled the car.
70s,
a
man.
cannon. The camera, you'll see what I'm on. The car, if that car rolls one more roll, that would have been on top of me. And I never moved away from the camera. That rolled about 8 times right toward my camera, and then it stopped, laying up at the bottom of that car facing the camera. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
you just wipe someone out with a camera?
Yep.
Or with a car?
Yep.
A flaming car.
A flaming car.
Oh my god.
When I told you this movie has so many stories.
Just like a cannon and dynamite.
Yeah, just
casually.
In case the dynamite isn't enough. We need a little more boom.
Jesus Christ.
So moving on from Injury Corner, let's go into something a little bit lighter. Let's talk costumes, shall we? So, costume tidbit. Most of the prom dresses they bought from a bridal store that was going out of business to save money, which I love.
Nice.
And that was an easy way for them to get multiples quickly and cheaply. So they just like grabbed all this from a going out of business sale. Carrie's dress was the one that was custom. And it was supposed to be red, according to the script.
Oh.
Costume designer Rosanna Norton chose pink instead because, as she wisely points out, how's the blood going to show up on a red dress? It needs to be a light-colored dress so that pig's blood really shows up. And De Palma then wanted to cut Margaret's line about the color, and she's like, red? I should have known it would be red. But Piper fucking Laurie is like, no. We have to keep that because in her head it is red, and that's part of telling us how insane she's gone, is like she's looking at that dress and seeing red. And to me it also reads as like yeah. Well, and then you have Sissy's improvised line going, "It's pink, mama."
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, shit.
It's that little interaction is perfect, and to me it's also there's an extra layer of added creepiness in that it almost feels like she's having a premonition of what's to come and like seeing the dress soaked in red. It's so good. So yeah, Piper Laurie had her finger on the pulse of this part. And with all of the fake blood, which was just Caro corn syrup and red food dye. That's all it is. With all of that under hot lights, Sissy would get really sticky, and so she stuck to any furniture she sat on, and her like limbs would stick to each other. She said that like her chin would stick to her neck if she tilted it down. Yeah. And so they'd have to like follow her around with a squirt bottle to unstick her from herself.
Stop it. Bless her.
The actual blood dunk, though, when she gets the bucket of pig's blood, all done in one take, and it was just her husband Jack Fisk standing on a ladder. Which they then say when they go on to do the 2013 remake. There's like all of these behind the scenes features about how hard the blood dunk was, and they had all of these machines, and they like called Brian De Palma to be like, "How did you do this?" And he was like, "We had Jack Fisk on a ladder."
Yeah.
Blood.
Wild.
Love.
Keep it
sometimes
simple.
Sometimes the practical is the best.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Like a fucking pro, though. Sissy Spacek shows up in costume for all of the reverse coverage for that scene, even though she wasn't on camera. So everyone had something to really react to. And I think it's Joel King in like an oral history goes on to say that he thinks she was like getting a little bit depressed during that time because she's like wearing this sticky, like gross, unclean dress, and like she's not even on camera, but she was like, I want everybody else to have it to properly see.
She seems so sweet.
She is a piece of pie. I fucking love Sissy Spacek. most of the special effects are our boy Jack Fisk alongside Gregory Auer.
Nice.
But given how famous the special effects in general and the ending in particular are, I was surprised to learn that this wasn't how the film was supposed to end. This is what I told you about earlier. Right. So, there was actually a wraparound planned that was like the beginning and the ending that was going to be shot. And they shot the beginning, which was showing the White's house being stoned.
Oh, God.
So, like, the house has stones raining down on it. And they built a half-size model of the house for this. And were, like, raining stones down on it. But on film, the pebbles just looked like water the way they moved. And so it was really underwhelming. Yeah, it, like, just looked like rain. And so the night before they're supposed to finish shooting, there's like some sort of an error with the conveyor belts for the house. Like it's like on a lift so that it can sink into the ground. And there's an error with that. And it's like the last scene they're shooting. And with this mechanical function, they all decide to scrap the ending scene, which is supposed to be the house then getting destroyed by boulders. Yeah. And instead just burn it. But they'd already shot the interiors. So if you watch closely, you can see the interiors of like Carrie as the house is getting destroyed or all around her. There's rocks falling around her. And then you go outside and there's none. And you see a little bit of a callback to it in the scene where Carrie's hand comes out of the rocks because it's all like igneous rocks that have fallen around.
I noted that. I thought that was, I didn't remember it looking like that. Like, that's really weird
and you're like, what is that? It looks really cool. That's why, because there was supposed to be this other ending, and that does come from the book, the image of the house being stoned. So they can't get that. Yeah. Margaret's death scene, I thought this was so cool how they shot in reverse. And so Piper Laurie basically wore, it's like a metal girdle around her tummy that had wooden blocks that the knives were stuck into. And then all of these, there were wires that go through tiny little holes cut in her costume that then go across the room to where the special effects guy then pulls the wires out, pulling the knives back out, and then that footage is reversed to show them going in.
It looks so good, though.
It's so good, right?
Yeah. That's cool.
Obviously that final scene, walking up to the grave and putting the flowers, also shot in reverse to give it like a spookiness. Nice. So I have some incredible quotes from Amy Irving about shooting that. Quote, Sissy had insisted on using her own hand in that scene. Of course she did. So they built this box under the rocks. Yeah. She was half in, half out of the rock pile. On paper, it didn't seem like a great scene, to tell you the truth. It was only written like halfway through the movie. So when they finally had the script, it said, I quote, walk in this dream and put flowers on a grave. Then this hand comes out of the grave and then you start screaming and you wake up with your mother. Now, you just don't even know whether this is going to work or not. But I knew when I attended the sneak preview on Halloween Eve, as I watched the entire audience jump out of their seats, I realized how well it worked.
Yeah.
And so whenever we hear a story like this, I'm always like, did that actress really want to do that, or did Brian De Palma pressure her?
Right.
No, Sissy Spacek really wanted to do that. And here's a quote from Sissy.
Oh, cute.
She says, quote, Jack, her husband, Jack dug the hole, Brian yelled grab, and that was my cue. Those rocks were pumice and they were heavy. It was the last day of shooting and I was all dolled up and they wanted my stand-in to do it, but my hand is my hand. It was claustrophobic, but very exciting. I couldn't see what with the blood being slippery. I almost broke Amy's arm. The rock scratched my arm to bits all the way down, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world. And on that, it was very important to Brian De Palma that Sissy's husband to be the one to dig the hole instead of him, which, like, I have mixed feelings on. I kind of think if you're like making an actor do something like that and you're feeling uncomfortable with it, you're ultimately the one burying them, whether you're doing it with your own hands or not. And I think like you have to take that on yourself. Right. But I digress.
Yeah.
Soundtracked. So the score is by Pino Donaggio, who is a regular De Palma collaborator and also scored Seed of Chucky. And Don't Look Now, which I really want to cover on the podcast. He also composed two of the pop tracks that we hear at the prom, but he was not the first choice for this. Brian De Palma wanted Bernard Herrmann, who did the Psycho score.
Well, that makes sense.
However, this is partially because he'd actually worked with Bernard Herrmann on Sisters. He scored De Palma's previous film. But he dies before this film can be completed. So Pino steps in and he directly steals the psycho violin motif.
Thank
those
you.
four.
Okay,
four
I was
notes.
like,
that
that's
is a direct
direct.
sample. Yeah.
Even like the there's a part where it goes doon 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 doon.
Yeah. No,
and I was like,
he directly takes from Bernard Herrmann.
Bummer
And
though, after he dies, to like just take it feels really shitty.
And not only that, Brian De Palma knows and has gone on record talking about the fact that he knows Bernard Herrmann would have hated this even more because he specifically despised music from one of his films being used for another. So, like, when he was working with De Palma on Sisters, De Palma had put in a bunch of music from, like, Psycho and Marnie and other things that Bernard Herrmann had scored as temp tracks for his editing. And Bernard Herrmann got furious at him and was like, don't play my music with the wrong movie. And so he goes on to do it as soon as he's dead.
Do people give this movie shit for that? Because Reanimator, I feel like people kind of like think it's so like hokey and like whatever.
Right.
But then
And
Carrie
then
doesn't get any hate for that?
I think part of the reason that this gets away with it more is because it only uses those 4 violin hits, like do 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 do.
Stupid.
And so like it's not like a full melody that it's taking, but it's
But-
still doing the same thing.
Yeah, doing it after he dies feel like without getting like especially when Brian wanted Bernard first.
Yeah. It feels like spitting on
like,
his memory a
well,
little
he's
bit.
dead now. Yeah, like we can just use it anyway. It feels
it
does.
Not
Spoiling
great.
Yeah, I agree.
So post-production. At first, editor Paul Hirsch, who, by the way, is a legend. He edited Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay,
he did a whole bunch of Star Wars movies. He did Lake Placid, Ayo.
That's why I might not let him.
He was kind of bummed out about the project because he'd worked with Brian from early in his career and had seen him move from horror work, like straight horror with Sisters, kind of farther from the genre, and he felt like this was a step back. And after reading the novel, he was like, why would you cast the like gorgeous and incredibly sweet Sissy Spacek as this ugly, unsympathetic character? But then he gets into the process and really likes it, partially because Brian lets him do the first cut himself without giving any feedback, and then just goes back and watches it, which is rare. They also, though, really disagreed about the use of split screen. Because Brian De Palma loves a split screen. He uses it in like as many of his movies as he possibly can. Hirsch thinks that it's like interesting in theory, but practically takes you out of it, which I would argue is the point of a split screen. Like the goal is not for it to look natural.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because De Palma had known from the beginning that he wanted to use a split screen, he a lot of the time didn't clear the full frame. And so when he was shooting the prom scene, the parts that he knew were going to be split screen, he had like, you know, like extra tripods sitting in the background and shit like that.
That's actually kind of genius.
Yes.
Your way, like, oh no.
As like a way of making sure. Yeah. And so because of that, then when Paul Hirsch goes in to edit it, he doesn't want to use split screen at all during the prom scene. And De Palma's like, too bad.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. And
I kind of love that. He's like, this is all we got.
And kind of cunty.
Yeah.
And so because of that, Hirsch cuts it with as many wide screenshots as he can use. But it's still not that many by comparison. And honestly, I think it's kind of brilliant because it's the only way that you get to see what Carrie's doing and the impact that it's having in the same moment.
It is such a, I love it.
I love it.
The cutting back and forth.
It wouldn't have the same impact.
It just wouldn't.
wouldn't.
So I do agree with him there.
I think it was the right choice, which I hate, but you know,
same.
It did, however, create all sorts of continuity nightmares with eye lines, where like she would look in one direction and then the thing would be happening in another, which is why you see like Sissy's side of the split screen switch over to the other side. Which this is where, if they had had a good script supervisor, this would not have been a problem because eye lines are a big part of what script supervisors are looking out for. But
it kind of like, I don't know, that even if it didn't, I don't even that whole moment, like the whole scene's so chaotic anyways that
I'm in the flow.
If they leaned into that, I also think it would have worked out really
absolutely
well too, so
I honestly would have been fine with more split screen.
Me too, because it really is like so horrifying, like seeing her reaction and like thinking about all the, like, you're watching her and like empathizing with her and then seeing this horror, and it's like,
it's incredible.
Yeah, you kind of feel bad for both simultaneously. Yeah.
And I don't think it would have that same emotional impact if you weren't seeing both in the same moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, there were over 100 setups for the slow-mo in the prom scene. Took 2 weeks to shoot, and how they did the part at the beginning before the coronation is they had the dancers dancing in one direction, and then they built a dolly track around them where the camera was spinning the other direction, and then the lights were spinning a third direction. Same for the camera crew. Yeah, particularly because Brian De Palma is just off screen screaming, "Faster, faster, faster!"
Oh.
And so by the end of it, after they finish the take, everybody applauds Joel King because he's just like holding on for dear life. Yeah. Poor thing.
I was holding on for dear life just watching the damn thing. I can only imagine.
And so for the final shot, just a little shout out to Paul Hirsch. He made sure that the first frame where you see the hand come up, which of course that's where you go back from slow-mo into regular speed too. That first frame comes at an off-tempo moment in the score. So then when the motion comes in and the shrieking on the soundtrack come in, it's exactly when you're not expecting it. Which,
because I knew it was coming and it fucking got
and it
me.
still gets you every time.
That's genius. I love that.
And a mini Hirsch-tid that is unconfirmed, but from IMDb, and I just had to shout it out because it's so funny.
Yeah.
Apparently, because his name appears on the opening credits right when Nancy Allen is walking out of the showers naked.
Yeah.
Apparently, a whole lot of his friends later asked him, like, "Why didn't you get your name in the credits?"
Shut the fuck up, Siena.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
I choose to believe that's true.
I do too. That's so funny. I hope that's true.
I'm gonna try and wrap up as fast as I can. Moving on to the release. Do you want to take a guess what it made back at the box office?
I feel like this like popped off immediately.
Oh, it did.
I'm gonna say like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of what box office is. I feel like it's been a minute since like 70 mil.
Oh, if only. It earned 33.8 mil against a 1.8 budget.
Yeah, it's wild.
Which would be approximately 182 million today against a 10 million budget. So yeah.
I was talking today's money, Siena. Obviously.
But like, I knew it was popular. I did not know it was that
amazing.
popular. That's huge.
It is such an interesting story, especially like with all the horror that had. Yeah, it was like this very like intelligent religious horror that was coming out at the time.
It's its own thing.
Yeah.
It's immediately adored. Roger Ebert gives it 3.5 out of 4 stars, and his review says, quote, "Brian De Palma's Carrie is an absolutely spellbinding horror movie with a shock at the end that's the best thing along those lines since the shark leaped aboard in Jaws. It's also, and this is what makes it so good, an observant human portrait." However, Siskel was not a fan. He gave it 2.5 stars and called the ending crude and sloppy. Which, like, you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah, truly.
This film...
cheese, but...
I know. It's satisfying
perfect,
cheese, though. This got not 1 but 2 Oscar nominations. Best Actress for Sissy Spacek, Best Supporting Actress for Piper Laurie. The awards instead went to Faye Dunaway for Network and Beatrice Straight also for Network, which, like, I have not seen Network. I know that Faye Dunaway's performance is very highly regarded, but I feel like both of these actresses were robbed, particularly Piper Laurie, and here's why. Because it turns out, I went down a wormhole looking into this, and Beatrice Straight, who beat Piper Laurie out, has the record for the shortest performance ever to win an Academy Award. I'm sure she was great, but she was on screen for literally 5.5 minutes of the entire movie, and Piper Laurie is Carrie.
Yeah.
She was robbed.
Yeah.
She was
that
robbed.
That performance was, again, like, so chilling in a way.
It's incredible.
I don't... Award things kind of...
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, like, Piper Laurie, when her character dies, she was the one who came up with the idea of the, like, orgasmic moans, because De Palma wanted her to just have a regular reaction to dying, and she was like, what if this is the best thing that's ever happened to Margaret?
Yeah.
He was like, yes.
Yeah, we said the Cenobites are gonna come up.
Yes! Yeah. A world of pleasure and pain.
Yeah, also just, I think it was perfect. And just so unexpected too. Fucking Sissy Spacek's response to that too, of just like, it's so great. It's
that scene is just
I feel like I am her in that moment. Perfect. Of like, you stop.
Yeah, Mom, you're embarrassing me. This film now holds a 94% from critics, a 77% from audiences. It is number 8 on Quentin Tarantino's list of his top 11 movies, which I just had to shout out.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It's made basically every horror list under the sun. The prom scene was number 8 on Bravo's Scariest Horror Movie Moments. Wow. It's in the Library of Congress, although surprisingly only got picked for it 2 years ago. ago, which is like weirdly late in the game.
Damn.
Spawns a franchise. You get The Rage Carrie 2 in 1999. You get a 2002 TV movie and the 2013 remake, and a Broadway musical that closed after 16 previews and 5 performances, which was so infamously terrible that there is actually a book named Not Since Carrie, 40 Years of Broadway Musical Flops.
Oh my God.
Amazing, right?
Damn.
If you want to learn more about that, there's a podcast and a book about the musical called Out for Blood. It's apparently from Sue Snell's perspective. It's led to a series of parody musicals, including there's also like a Stephen King sanctioned adaptation with a drag queen in the lead, which sounds amazing. And I just want to end with a quote from De Palma about camp. Because an interviewer asked him if he thinks his movie is camp.
Funny. Yeah.
And he said, God, they're still using camp? The terminology of ancient persons. No, I don't think that it's camp at all. It keeps very serious within the realm of its own world. It has a very adolescent reality, and it's true to it. Which...
It's so film bro-y answer of him, like, if it's camp, it's bad.
Yeah, and it's also like, you don't know what the definition of camp is. That
Absolutely
is camp.
Not. No.
This is a campy movie.
Yeah, he put that in a completely different pocket of, yeah.
And just like rounding out with like a film theory rant corner thought, which is, you know, one of the things that you see a lot in the press at the time, part of why this film is so popular, is that people are like, this is so refreshing and different from things like The Exorcist, which everything that's coming out at that point is like Exorcist style.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that and I was like, well, what's the difference here? In Carrie's case, the evil is coming from inside the woman, very much like the difference between Jawbreaker and Mean Girls. It's like there is this seed of evil inside the female characters that is part of, I think, part of why these films get the reactions they do. And one of the things that gets critiqued about this movie a lot is people point to this as one of the best examples of De Palma having like the male gaze and like just like ogling his female characters. And I just want to close out by saying, I don't care if a director ogles his female main characters if he gives those female main characters real human life and personality. Because how many films can we think of where the female characters maybe aren't like ogled by the camera, like appearing nude out of the shower, but still don't get to be humans? I would much rather like female bodies like be looked at as hot and also be real.
Yeah. And that's the thing that gets me too, because I kind of normally stuff like that kind of gets me because it does just feel like ogling and then like throw away, but it doesn't. It's so...
not here. It's you ogle.
Also, it just feels so gay, so it doesn't.
It does, yeah. Oh,
I'm so annoyed that it's him.
That shower scene was truly like the high school gay panic experience.
Well, also
in a nutshell.
even when like she's like after obviously like the panning across, which just feels so like. I don't know. It almost feels like so 80s, like whatever every 80s teen movie did after with like the steam.
I mean, I think a
and, like,
lot of them copied Carrie. Yeah.
But then like after that panning, when it gets to the moment, like it's just so real and raw that's like the last fucking thing. I'm like, I want to protect that baby angel so fucking bad.
Same. I'm not looking at her in like that kind of way.
No, she looks like a baby.
Yeah.
So like it's not even like sexual at that point. It's just like such a pure form of like being human at that point that it's just like, oh my God, like the whole movie I just want to hug her.
I know. And like I feel like if you can watch this movie and like your main takeaway from it is like, oh no, they showed tits. It's abusive to women. Like you really missed out on the purpose of the movie.
Yeah, because her performance, like if you look past that performance, you don't deserve to watch this movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
These movies are so good. I'm so happy I heard a bunch of behind the scenes because I have to revisit this one more.
Carrie?
I feel like I've only seen it once or twice. And I do feel like I need to watch it more because it was so good.
Yeah,
it's just so good.
Do you remember when you first saw it?
I think my mom actually put it on. It was like one of those things where it was like always the weekend. I think it was like on the TV. Obviously it was censored. Because it's like we didn't have like DVDs and stuff, and I can't remember like watching uncensored things on TV.
This reminds me, quick little fun fact. De Palma actually shot a TV version of that opening scene with like carefully placed towels.
I was wondering what it looked. Yeah. Okay. Because my mom was like, you have to watch. I think it was like it was on. We had to watch it. Yeah, and it just from there I was like, holy shit.
It's also one my mom showed me too, which is like such a funny mom choice.
Isn't that weird? But I think we had like moms that really appreciated like horror in that way.
I think my mom showed it to me when I was like in high school and didn't want to go to my own prom. And I think she was like, I think you need to watch Carrie instead. And so I'm pretty sure that's what I did for junior prom. Yeah.
Funny. Yeah, it had to have been high school, I feel like. But yeah, that was my like first instance, was just being introduced to it. And I can't remember the last time I watched it. But there were definitely like plot points I forgot. Like I kind of forgot the ending. I forgot how the opening opens, like just jumps right in. So there were like moments I definitely like forgot. But all like the big points were there, and just the performance of Sissy Spacek. But man, do I have an appreciation for how she was so beautiful.
I just adore her. And I also just like again, I watched so many interviews for this. Out of all of the people that I watched interviews with, she was the only person who like never had even like a couched unkind thing to say about anybody or any part of the experience. She just like loved all of it. She has her little Texan accent. So I think she was a homecoming queen back in her day, which makes sense. She's just like such a sweet little baby bird.
Yeah, I really like her a lot. Yeah, these were fun.
Yeah.
So fun. Oh my god. Where do we go from here? I just want to rewatch that.
I know. Well, I feel like in a way, at least your film for our next pairing is going to be kind of a similar vibe in some ways. Yeah, mine's not, but
yeah, yours is totally, So we did these two, so prom season, and then our next one, we kind of struggled, I feel like, of like what to do, but we're playing Serial Mom, like I mentioned earlier, at the Jean Cocteau Cinema for Mother's Day weekend. I have not seen it, but Siena informed me that it's Matthew Lillard's first film role.
Sure is.
And he is such a baby, and it was only a couple years before
2 years before Scream,
which is wild.
And I bet you that performance is part of what got him cast in Scream. Really? Because there's like,
it's so like, I'm so excited. It just looks so bonkers. So I'm very excited to see it. So yeah,
we're doing John Waters. Like I was saying, I'm pretty sure it's his only John Waters' only horror movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we said he has horrifying themes.
Yes.
But this is I'm excited for that. And again, I think very in line with Jawbreaker, I think. So that's what I'm going to do. And
I'm doing the others.
Listen, we were looking up like mom horror. I don't celebrate Mother's Day.
Horror, all right.
It's not my thing.
It's also like a film that I've just been dying to have a chance to rewatch because it was a really big like artistic influence on me, and I haven't seen it since I was in high school actually, but it made a huge impression. So I'm so jealous.
This one really kind of scared the shit out of me.
Yeah,
this is the one, the scene in the bed where there's like
I think so.
That I'm still to this day fucks me up.
The reveal on the others is one of the first times that I remember, because like I started watching horror movies so young. One of the first times that I remember after like becoming a horror fan, being really scared by a reveal in a horror movie. Like it gets under your skin.
I'm so totally completely different, but I think in a very fun way.
And that way, like,
it's like a little bit either or.
Yeah, whether you're feeling like a horror comedy or a straight horror, you've got some scary moms either way.
Yeah. So tickets on sale for Serial Mom. If you want to see it in the screen, they are already up on the website. So you can buy tickets. The Anti-prom, I'm so excited. We're going to buy decorations, I think. Soon.
Love Among the Stars themed, like the one in Gary.
Yeah, now I really want those fucking stars.
I think we need to.
We should make some.
We should.
Craft day. What else? We nomination things. If you go to the link in our bio,
we got nominated for things.
New Mexico Entertainment Awards, we are nominated for Best Podcast. So again, it's in our bio. You can vote for us. I don't know when like the time frame is. I think you can only vote once. And then we're nominated for Santa Fe Best Of, and I think do you have to be local for that one?
As far as I know, you do not.
You know not. So link in our bio for that too. For Best Instagram Feed.
Yes, which I'm so tickled by because
they nominated us.
Did you really?
It was the only applicable category. And I thought it'd be really funny because it's so random.
It's so random.
I voted for us once, though. I don't know how we got
so funny.
I nominated us once.
Oh my god!
So
wow.
So yeah, if you want to be like really silly and let us win.
I mean, like we're up there with like the Santa Fe Opera.
But look at their Instagram feeds.
It's true.
I say
ours is more fun.
I think more interesting.
Ours is the most gay and the most profane, and I think you should vote for us.
Vote for gay. Vote for us.
Yes. A vote for us is a vote for gay.
And in this time,
we need as many votes for gay as we can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
That feels like a good note to end on.
It does.
A vote for us is a vote for gay. Yeah.
For gay. And trans visibility. Yay.
Yes. On that note,
yeah.
Thank you, Warren, for giggling along with us. I think I couldn't see your face this time. Great.
He giggled.
Thank you, Travis, the man behind the camera. Thank you for fact checking
everything.
Our cinematographer. Quick shout out. I looked up during the break. Amy, the female cinematographer that we had on Jawbreaker, also was uncredited but worked as a cam op on both Heathers and Clueless. Yeah. So the girl's a baddie.
Yeah, she came in, she was like, this is mine for taking. She killed it. So
Thanks, Travis, for finding that. Thanks, Theo Schaefer, for the wonderful theme music playing us out.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening and supporting and everything. It's really cool. You're all awesome.
And
until
next time,
thanks for listening to
Splice and Splatter, the film podcast presented by the Jean Cocteau Cinema in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where classic horror.
It's modern gore.
And until next time,
we'll be right back.